And good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Encrypted Connections. Happy Thursday. I am your host, Kyle, I think, anyway, last time I checked. That's what they told me at the doctor's today, anyway. So I guess that's not changed. Tonight, we have a good buddy on. How did we meet, man? I mean, I know we met online, obviously, but how did we end up talking to each other initially?
When you went on Untold Radio and you were talking with Doug Hychek about your encounter.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Is what I started in the chat, because you were in the chat because it was taped. Wasn't it a taped show or something? You were in chat with me, and I was chatting back and forth with you about your encounter and just how intrigued I was about it, because it's nice when you get to talk to someone that's had, something happen to them, especially in the Northeast.
Yeah. Sure.
Me,
yeah.
Especially for me, I'm always looking for answers.
Right.
So when I get to talk to someone like you who doesn't live far away and lives in the Northeast, I love to get to connect with that person.
Yeah.
And just about what happened to you and how, a Class A encounter happened, and how, my encounter is a little different than yours, but still, what I felt when it happened is still bothers me to this day.
Sure.
And I'm sure it's the same for you. I mean, talk about your encounter and it brings it back like it happened yesterday. It
does. I mean, there comes a point. First of all, I didn't even say who you are. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Brian Garvey. This is Brian Garvey of Brian and Chewie Go Hiking. He kind of bamboozled me tonight. I thought I was getting the dog, and Brian showed up.
He's already passed out. He left. He's supposed to be on the side with me. I was just supposed to stay on the side.
It's bedtime for Maverick too. Every time it gets to be around that time, if he's not heading upstairs, he's looking at everybody going, what are we doing down here still?
Yeah. 7 o'clock, he is on the couch and he is just out.
Yep.
He's out for the night, which is that's fine with me.
Yeah, hey, whatever. So we met in a chat. You're right. It may have been Doug's show. That was a great show, by the way. He's just such a fascinating guy. And Alex obviously is just that guy is an encyclopedia.
I didn't want to bring up Alex yet just because of everything that's happened to me. But yes, I mean, when it comes to this subject, there's no better friend to have, or there's no better friend that I made going through this, especially with what happened to me, and not being able to talk, feeling comfortable being able to talk to anyone.
Yeah,
he was the first guy I felt comfortable to talk about. He was the first show I ever went on to talk about what happened to me and what's happened to me out there while hiking.
Yeah.
So I am so lucky to have him as a friend.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal guy. I mean, I reached out to him. I didn't know him. I just sent him a message and said, hey, listen, I'm an admirer of your work. I'd love to have you on the show. If it's possible, please let me know. I'll do whatever I need to do to get you on. And, of course, being just the gentleman that he is, he messaged me back and said, I would love to come on the show. When do you want to do it? And then we set it up, and the first time when he was supposed to be on was actually the night that we ended up going on Doug's show. Because like an idiot, I double booked myself. So I had Alex on my show, and I was booked on Doug's show.
Oh, geez.
But I thought time difference. I thought, okay, I'll do Doug's show for an hour and a half, jump out of there, and come start my show. But I got the time difference all screwed up. So I was like, hey, Alex, I messed up. Doug wants to know if you'll come on the show with us. And he was very hesitant because he said he doesn't like doing multiple guests. He said it gets a little
hectic with the talking and cutting people off.
But after the show, he was like, man, I'm so glad I did that show because it went so well. But I mean, when you have a guy like Doug and his son, they're professionals, man. They're professionals. And Alex is a professional too. So
exactly.
But what a wonderful guy. Just a wonderful guy.
And Alex is the same off camera.
Oh, I'm sure he is.
He is the same. We go hiking. He is the same guy. And that's such a great thing to have in this community for what small town monsters, especially what Alex does, just because he's from the Northeast. Yep. He's got a special place for New Hampshire, and a place that it doesn't get talked about a lot. If you think about Sasquatch, there's not a lot of people that talk about New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont area. And the funniest thing is, Maine and New Hampshire, those are the two most forested states.
Yeah, I know.
In America.
Crazy.
It's crazy. And I think that's why you don't get as many reportings of sightings, because there's not as much population as there are in these other hot zones. I call them hot zones, the Pacific Northwest. You got the big thicket in Texas, Ohio. You got all these other hot zones. For us, there's that, to me, the hot zone for where I go is New Hampshire. It is a hot zone. And it's just
where do you go? Do you go to the White Mountains?
I am an avid hiker now. I've been hiking since 2018. I did my first mountain was Mount Washington in 2018 with my girlfriend, now wife. It's that first mountain I did. I instantly fell in love with it. I fell in love with hiking because 2014, 2015, I was always an overweight person. So I started to exercise. I started to run, started to lose weight. But then I was always looking for that next activity to kind of keep me from getting bored. Did obstacle course racing. Then I got into hiking. And then I got into the mountain hiking. And that was my fix. That was my drug was the mountain hiking. So ever since that first hike, I was like, oh my God, I got to get back up here. So I'm looking at the next mountain I can climb. And before you know it, I'm looking up this list in New Hampshire. It's called the New Hampshire 48. It's 48 mountains that are over 4,000 feet and higher. Mount Washington being the highest, I think it's 6,288 feet, something like that.
Let me just for 1 second here. If you guys have never been to Mount Washington, if you've never seen what it can be like on Mount Washington, the weather on top of that mountain is some of the most severe, intense, deadly weather in the United States.
It is the worst weather.
Yeah.
Recorded.
It was the coldest temperature ever in the United States was just recorded in that last cold break.
Over 220 mile an hour winds on that peak. And they have the weather observatory at the peak.
Yep.
And they have a camera that's going constantly.
Yeah.
You look at that thing when it's a blizzard.
It's nuts, dude.
It's like something out of The Shining.
Yeah.
And they're going in the blizzard in the movie The Shining. That's how scary it is up there. And you're right. Yeah. It's deadly. There have been a few deaths. There have been a few deaths in the White Mountains area just this past, 6 months. There have been deaths because people are just the lack of just not being prepared for what's on the base. You could have 50-degree weather, 55 degrees. You go up to 4,000 or 5,000 feet. There could be a snow. There could be a whiteout, and unfortunately, we lost a young girl this past year who was trying to finish her 48 on her birthday.
Oh,
I guess kind of sad talking about it, but she only had like 3 or 4 to go, and they took a vacation there, and that was her thing. Her goal was to finish on her birthday. They ended up finding her on her birthday.
Oh
after
God.
2 days. So it gives me goosebumps talking about it, but it just shows how prepared you have to be, especially if you're hiking on the mountains.
Yeah.
Luckily,
Sure.
I've never had the worst thing I've had happen is just this past October. I had a really bad shoulder injury that put me out for
I
over
remember.
3 months before I could hike. Again. So I've done one mountain since my injury, and I'm going back next week. So
Right on.
but yeah, you never know what could happen up there. And
No.
I know we wanted to get into some of the geography. I didn't know where you wanted to start with this. If you wanted me to start with what got me into this.
Yeah, I mean, we can start in the beginning, man. It don't matter. You're right though. This section of the United States is not necessarily talked about that much when in the Sasquatch subject. I say this often. When
You
people
do,
ask me where I'm
and every
from,
time you say, I say it when you say it, it's the T word. It's taboo.
yeah, it's taboo.
Very taboo up here, where
Yeah.
you can't just have this conversation, or like when I found something last year, I can't just go to someone and be like, oh wow, you can't believe what I found, man. Like
No.
you can't. You're gonna be looked at funny.
There he is.
And that's the reason probably why I kept what happened to me to myself for so long. I just didn't want to I didn't want to be looked at weird.
Of course.
So
it's a hard enough thing when you have that experience, and even though 100%, what you went through, what you saw, what you were, even still, your brain is trying to tell you that this isn't possible. This is not possible. Was this really real? So you're fighting all of those things, and then you have this underlying current of judgment and ridicule that you're worried about. And so when people want to come forward, they're always terrified. Most people are. Unfortunately, it's such a tricky thing. And I'm learning this a lot more now, being in the position that I'm in here, where people come to you with evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Those photos I posted the other day were just the perfect thing, like a perfect example of somebody purposefully trying to hoax. And I'll get into that at another time, but there's more behind that I learned today. But the point is that you're right. You're afraid of what people are going to say, what they're going to think. This area, the Northeast, is so known for that closed lips.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And just in general too, not even about Sasquatch.
No, in general.
So when you throw that into it, forget about it.
Right.
It's a lost cause right now until that body is there, until that evidence is there. It's never going to change up here. It's never
not up here. No.
Nope.
People. The problem with is, especially, like, I don't know what it's like up there. I know that it's a little bit more progressive in like Vermont, New Hampshire. You have a lot more liberal, like relaxed kind of people up there. Connecticut has a lot of very stuffy folks.
Yeah.
Who are so worried about keeping up with the Joneses that you won't, if they have something wrong, if there's something happens to their family that's not so great, they'll do everything they can to keep that from ever being talked about with anybody or getting out to anybody. That's just what it's like here. So imagine now, the Joneses go up to their ski lodge in Vermont, and they're out on their snowmobiles, and they see one of these things. Do you think they're going to say anything?
No.
Absolutely
Why?
not.
Why? Especially in New Hampshire. The issue in New Hampshire, I talk with Alex about this, all the time, is private land. Some of this stuff is happening on people's private property, and they don't want anybody knowing. They don't want these people coming checking out their property because they had a a report or a sighting.
Sure.
Even a place that Alex investigates in Western New Hampshire. It's a private property, and they let him go on there. He did one of his documentaries for New Hampshire, the Granite State Bigfoot, was done on that, guys. He does his investigations over there. He's got a setup over there and stuff. But but that's the problem up here a lot, especially with Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. There's all this private land. These people with the apple trees, all this stuff, all this private land that they don't want people going on it, especially if they have something going through it. You know what I mean? That they can't explain or don't want to explain to everybody.
Right.
So there is a lot of that up here. So
how'd you get into this?
Okay. This was the summer of 2003. Now, before we even get into that, the first time I ever heard of Sasquatch or anything, I remember when I was a kid and they had Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh yeah, great show.
Mysteries. Oh, what a great show! And
Robert Stack.
Yes, don't you love that voice, man?
Man.
Voice.
Yes.
As a kid, I was always into the mysteries. When it came to books, when I went to the library, I always went to the mystery section. So it was always something that genre I always gravitated towards that. So when that came out on Unsolved Mysteries, you're in awe, especially when you're a child. You see something like that that's not supposed to exist, that they say doesn't exist, I should put. And you see how big it is and how hidden it can remain. As a child, I don't think you know how big the world is when you're that young and you see something like that. But when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, that's just something that's in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. That's all I thought. There's one out there. Mm-hmm. Could be real, could be fake. I don't know, but that's all I thought. So let's fast forward to the summer of 2003. I had a son. He was 5.5 at the time, and his mother. We all decided to go to Storyland up in Glen, New Hampshire. Glen, New Hampshire is northern New Hampshire. It's past the presidential range. So we were going to go for 2 days and 3 nights. Now this amusement park we were going to visit, Storyland. It's for children. I
know Storyland park. Well, yeah.
Okay, you know that well. That is where we were going to take him, because we wanted to see how he was going to do on roller coasters and little rides, because it's all kiddie rides.
It's so cool too.
It was so cool. We had such a great time. He loved it. So that whole second day we spent at Storyland. Now, where we can't. Oh, hi, Nikki. Yeah, I love Nikki. Sorry. No,
you're good.
Now, like I said, Storyland was in Glen, New Hampshire. We were camping in Bartlett, New Hampshire. That's just the next town over. I think it was like a 15-20 minute ride. And the camping spot we got was right on the bend of this, I don't want to say a river. It was more like a brook, but it was very fast flowing brook, where it was probably, I'm going to say 8 to 10 feet wide, to where you could rock hop across. But it was something that I didn't want my son doing at his age, because you could fall in the water and you're going for a ride. It was white water. On the other side of that brook was the wilderness. It was just part of the White Mountain National Forest. So it was such a great location, because it was just our camp spot and then the wilderness. So we kind of had this little bend area to ourselves, to where we put our tent. We had a big green, it was like 6 to 8 person tent. It was a tent you could just stand up and walk around in it. It was that big.
Nice.
And just the 3 of us. So we had all our stuff on one side. I slept in the middle where my feet were at the door. And then it was my girlfriend. And then my son was on the outside of the tent. So that night, after we get back, I was the last one to go to bed. You have to put the fire out at a certain time, 9, 10 o'clock at night. I do that. Now, there's something, I am an awful sleeper in a tent. I can't sleep good in a tent. Even now, I go out, I do all these hikes, all these overnight hikes. I know I'm not going to be sleeping in the tent. I'm going to be tossing, turning, can't sleep. So that night, I'm just laying there. I am laying there for hours, man. Hours. I'm getting pissed. Right? Because I know we're getting up the next morning. I got to drive 4 hours home. I got to sit through this. I got to sit through this traffic because it's one of the last weekends of summer.
Yeah.
You go to the last weekends of summer to New Hampshire, you're sitting in traffic, man. It's so bad. This is why I go hiking during the week. I will try to hike during the week so I don't have to deal with the traffic. So anyway, I'm laying there and I'm listening to the water flowing near me because we were right next to that fast flowing brook. I'm listening to the crickets. I'm listening to the little mice and little, you hear the little running around leaves around your tent. Like I'm listening to that. I'm trying to stay calm to go to sleep. All of a sudden, I hear this impression start going across my tent. Now, like I said, I was laying there for hours, so it was the middle of the night. But you know how your eyes, you first shut the light off in your room, it's totally dark, but then your eyes kind of adapt. You adjust a little. I could see that night. I could see in the tent that night. So by the time I at first I heard it. So when I heard the impression, of course it scares the crap out of you.
Of
in
course.
The middle of the night, you don't expect that. In the middle of the night at a campground, someone to be running their hands across your tent.
No.
So I heard it. I go up on my elbows because, like I said, my feet were at the door of the tent. I'm up on my elbows. I finally get to see what the noise was. I see the impression. So I'm seeing the digits, probably by the top of the door of the tent. I'm watching these digits go across the freaking tent. So I am pissed. Okay. I am getting up like this. I'm ready to unzip my zipper. I'm going to see who this asshole is messing with. He is me and my family in the middle of the night. Like, who do you think you are to scare? Like, what if you scared my 5-year-old son? All this is going through my mind in those seconds. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
So as I'm about to get up and the hand's done going across, I hear this growl. Well, I heard the breath. I heard a breath. The breath went to a growl.
That breath, let me ask you a question. That breath, if someone described it to me, it was like a horse. It's closest breath I could describe.
Like I said, whatever did that breath had a set of lungs because
gigantic.
It was such a breath to where it was like a breath to me where I have to go, but to him it was nothing. It was nothing. And then it went into that growl, and that growl, it was the deepest growl. It was the deepest growl I've ever heard. But it went to the growl. After the growl, it went to a grunt. So it went from the breath to a growl to a grunt. When it grunted, I remember my earlobes vibrating. I remember my chest. I remember everything vibrated on me.
Oh boy!
I went like this. with my sleeping bag. I grabbed that stuff. I drop right down. I went from being mad to being confused to being totally terrified because I just didn't. I'm like, what could do that? I'm thinking, what animal just did that to me? What animal could do that vocal? I'm thinking, of course, the first thing that pops in my head, because it's one of the biggest animals there, is bear. I'm thinking of something that can growl. I'm thinking, what could do that? And then I'm thinking, no, I'm like, it can't be a friggin' bear. A bear can't do what I saw across the tent like that. It would put a freaking hole through it with its claws. I'm like,
it would have crushed the tent, would have fallen on it, would have.
Yeah, a bear is not going to just go by. Like, We were rookie campers. I had my freaking coolers out. I had, everything was out. It didn't freaking touch it. A bear would have been ripping through our coolers, man. We had all our food in it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Would have left your tent alone if you had coolers and food.
Exactly. I would have heard something. But to hear that breath, to hear that how big those lungs were, it confused. I was so confused. I was so scared.
Of course.
The first thing I did after I dropped down was I turned, I looked to the side, and I see if it woke up my girlfriend. I just see if there's any movement. And when this grunt happened, it wasn't loud. It was the depth. I try to explain to people it was the depth. I mean, it felt like, it's almost like when it happened and I look back at it, it's like when it did that breath to the grunt, why did it do it right after my tent? Because I was up and looking. I'm like, did it hear me? Did it know I was up? It's so much runs through your head afterwards. You start to, it's something, then you just think about it all the time.
Oh yeah.
So when I'm laying there after that grunt, like I told you, I was listening to the birds. Well, not the bird. I was listening to the crickets. I was listening to the little pitter patter of the mice. After that vibration, it went dead quiet. There were no crickets. Whatever gave off that vibration affected what was around me as well. Like to go dead silent like that, that scared me. So I am just laying there, and I'm like, I didn't want to. I don't know if it was the fear of what happened, or if I was like that jolt, that vibration. If that froze me, like if I was hit with something, I don't know, because I was so terrified. I couldn't move.
Just like when you were a kid and you were in bed and you thought there was a monster in your closet, and you were convinced that there was a monster in your closet.
And you're hiding, and you have a little slit, and you could just see a little bit. That was me that night.
And you thought to yourself, if I don't move, it won't see me and it won't get me. It's that same feeling.
And I was saying, I'm like, I don't want to move. I don't want to make a sound, because whatever that was, it didn't want it coming back.
Right.
I'm thinking of my son, who was on the outside of the tent, on the you know what I'm saying? It's the end of the tent.
Sure.
The direction that freaking thing was going. I didn't want it to come back to my son's side of the tent. Right. I was thinking stuff like that, but I was still so confused because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know. Yes, it affects me, and this is why I was talking to Kyle before. When I tell my encounter, this is probably the 6th time I've told it. It takes me right back to that freaking night in the tent. I get the goosebumps. Oh, yeah.
It's a visceral thing, man. You don't. It's traumatic like that. I think any time that you have, when these things happen to people, it doesn't matter if you are a believer or not. When the time comes and you see this, you encounter it, whether it's 100 yards away, whether it's touching your tent, whether it's 10 feet from you, there's this reaction that happens inside of you that everything in you is so confused, because it's not something that you've ever seen. So your brain is trying, or heard. So your brain trying to process all of these things at once, and then what do you do with it afterwards? It just lingers, man. And you tell it. You talk about your encounter. You talk about the experience over and over. It gets easier with time.
It gets easier.
Those feelings don't go away.
They never go away.
No.
And I think that's something my wife doesn't understand is I feel like it just when I tell it now, I feel like it just happened yesterday. Do you know?
Yeah.
You bring it back in your mind and you're replaying it. I don't have to close my eyes to picture it. I can just see it right now. I can see those digits. like it wasn't a graze. It wasn't just gentle, dude. It pressed and went across. It was loud. It was loud when when you go across a tent. It's pretty loud when everything else is quiet. No one's
Of
talking.
course, it's nylon, man. It makes that
It's
noise.
nylon. And that's why I was so surprised they didn't wake up on the side of me. And you don't know how close I came to nudging her and being like, hey, something, I just heard something. And I came so close, so many times in those few days of just saying something. But I didn't want her to say, Brian, it was just a person.
Yeah.
Because she didn't hear what I heard.
Yep.
If you hear, or if not even hear it, it was feeling it. It wasn't just hearing it, it was the feeling. I mean, when that thing grunted, man, it was probably 6 to 8 feet away from me. And for it not to be a loud, like holler, screeching yell, no, it was just a growl to a grunt. But to be able to vibrate me without even going loud, because I have people all the time. What can you compare it to? Now, I've spoken with another guy who I'll probably bring up in a little bit because we found something together last year, and he's had a great Class A encounter in New Hampshire. That's how we ended up talking. Was he heard about my encounter, but he had the same thing happen. He was foraging for mushrooms in New Hampshire, and when you're foraging for mushrooms, you go off trail. You'll go off trail. He ended up getting into like this dry riverbed. What he thought was a trail happens to me all the time when I'm hiking. Sometimes I will veer off trail because you get a lot of runoff from the mountain, and it almost looks like a trail after it dries.
Sure does, yeah.
It's happened so many times. I am so lucky. I carry a Garmin. I carry a satellite phone with me that has a GPS. There's been quite a few times, man, where I've gone just off trail, not knowing, or just following the dog like a dope, like I do sometimes because he's always ahead of me. I'll go off trail, and I'll tell you what, if anyone who's listening, if you haven't been into the White Mountains or anywhere in the Northeast, you go off trail, man. If you go off trail like 10 yards in some areas, it's so hard to find that freaking trail. It's so hard to find that trail. It's so hard.
Everything looks the same, right?
Dude, I've had times where there's times where I'm filming myself, and I will do like my dumb thing of the day. I do like, here's my dumb thing of the day that I've did, hiking. Like I've either gone the wrong way, or I'll share everything while I'm hiking.
Sure, yeah.
The good and the bad. I got my shoulder injury. I got that sucker on record, man. I took a spill on my hike and hurt my shoulder in 3 different places, but I finished the hike and I finished that video.
Yeah.
But I am always sharing my reactions.
Sure.
Which is probably why I've what we found last year. I have my GoPro going, man. You get to see our reaction when we find this track, and it is.
It's great.
Dude,
it's great.
I love it. Even though I warn people, there is a warning, explicit language.
Again,
bombing. But
it's a visceral reaction, man. You can't help it. You get excited. You're like,
yeah, to where you don't even remember you're recording. So
yeah,
you just see it.
That's out the window.
He's pirouetting as we find this sucker. It was so fun. It was so fun. But we'll get to that later. But I remember the next morning after that grunt. Okay, after that night, I remember I didn't sleep that whole night. I did not sleep, man.
I'm sure you didn't.
I didn't feel safe, Kyle. I didn't feel safe, dude, till it started getting light out, until the birds started chirping. It's when I finally was able to get this weight, just this exhale of, I could finally relax because it's getting light out. People are going to stop moving around. Don't get me wrong. I was so exhausted. It was such a crazy night that when I got up the next morning, I didn't know what to look for around the campsite. Because I didn't at that time still, I had no clue what the hell it was that night. I had no idea. No cryptid was in my mind. Do you know what I mean? At that time,
Yeah.
mind you, back then I had a flip phone. There was no internet. There was no. This is 2003 when this happened. There was no YouTube. There was no. Let's go on. I got to see what's going on out here. That's. I was left confused, and I remember, like I said, I was so close. I was so close to telling my girlfriend, but like I said, I didn't want to go down that. Oh, it was probably just a person.
Yeah.
So I buried it away. I remember after 3 days of constantly thinking about it after we got home, I am losing sleep over this until I finally said to myself, I'm like, Brian, forget it, dude. You don't know. You don't know what it was. You're safe. Nothing happened to your family. You're okay. It's okay. Like, just let it go. I buried it away, man. I buried it away until Monster Quest comes out. Monster Quest, the show, comes out in like 2009. They do this one of their shows was in the Sierras, and it was John Mayenzinski, Tenenbaum. Man, if any of you have not heard John Mayenzinski Tenenbaum, look it up.
Incredible.
Incredible. His tent was destroyed. But when I saw that, it started to get the wheels rolling in my head. I was like, I was like, this guy got messed with in his tent, but this guy saw the silhouette. He saw the silhouette after his tent was wrecked. He was able to see it in the tree line. It got me thinking. It really got me thinking, but I still wasn't convinced, like, oh, that's what it was, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't until 2015, Finding Bigfoot goes to New Hampshire. Not going to knock Finding Bigfoot, because what I liked about Finding Bigfoot was when they went to the town hall meetings. I loved hearing the people's encounters. And when they went to New Hampshire, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I got to watch this. I got to see what they say about New Hampshire and what area they ended up doing their investigation right around the Mount Washington Hotel. Right down the road where I had the tent encounter, right down the road. So when I saw that and I saw the encounters that they were putting, that the town hall was telling, I was like, oh my God, this guy was getting messed with on Cherry Mountain, which is next to Mount Washington, which was next to where my tent encounter was. And that's where I was like, oh, wow. I'm like, maybe that is one of the answers I'm looking for. Maybe because all these years of confusion, maybe finally that could be one of the answers I'm looking for. So that was always in my mind to be like, oh, wow, Brian, maybe that's what happened to you back then. So let's fast forward 2018. I start getting into mountain hiking. Like I told you, as soon as I did my first Mount Washington, I fell in love with mountain hiking. So I was after that hike, I am planning these big hikes. I was in the best shape of my life at that age, 38, 39. I was in the best shape. So I planned this. I want to talk about this area because we wanted to get into the geography a little bit of the Northeast.
Sure, yeah.
Now, the White Mountain National Forest it's I think it's 800,000 acres. 800,000
It's massive.
acres is massive, and it's broken up into little sections, but it's massive. This
and beautiful.
Like I tell everyone, if you haven't visited the Northeast, specifically Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, if you like forest, if you like fall foliage colors,
I would even go to the western part of Massachusetts too.
Even Western Mass, gorgeous. Yeah. You go there during the fall time, it's like it's on fire.
Oh, it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen.
It's absolutely beautiful, man. Just this year, this past year, I saw like true color for the first time. because I'm colorblind. I am red green colorblind. I have the glass. So I got these glasses. They're called. It's backwards on the thing. Well, whatever. In chroma.
I've
chroma.
seen these.
Yeah. So I got those glasses this year because everything you see pink, I see gray. When you see red to me is like maroon. It's very dark. I see a lot darker than you. Some kind of scare tactic, or it seemed like that individual never come across a tent. I don't know, because it was such an aggressive. It scared me. You want to call it a scare tactic? For sure. But to answer that, when I started going down the rabbit hole after my encounter, especially after what happened to me on this hike that I want to talk about. So I want to answer this, but just let me go through.
It's hard to answer that. I mean,
it's very hard.
No offense to you, Mean Green. It's very difficult to answer because you don't know. And so, even when, even things like a growl, people associate a growl with aggression, and it's not necessarily aggression because we don't know that that's just not a way of communication that's easy for them. A growl to them could be the same as you and me going, "Hey, what's up, pal?" You know what I mean? We just don't know. So it's hard to say.
And I've had some great questions when I was on another podcast. Like they asked, like, did you guys pee outside the tent? Or was your girlfriend menstruating?
Yeah.
I was getting these questions that I never thought of, that I was like, yes and yes. Yes and yes to both of those. Could that have had something to do with it? How do I know?
Very well could have.
But it's great questions. It's great questions to things
there
I
you
never
go, right
thought
there.
of that I knew.
See what Stingray says? Wolves don't bark. They growl even when they aren't mad. Point proven. You just don't know.
You don't know. To me, it could have been a curiosity thing, or right when it was done. And it's weird because it didn't growl until after it was done. Till after it was done going across the tent was the growl grunt. Okay. So I don't know. Who knows?
Could have been a satisfactory growl, like,
or it could have been, "Don't come out of your tent" growl.
Yeah, right. Who knows?
But yeah, I'll never know. Obviously, I'll never know. So. But now I'm way off. I don't even know where I was.
So you were. It was 2018. We were talking about the geography of the White Mountains.
Okay. Now, like I said, I wanted to hit as many mountains as I could. So they have this list called the New Hampshire 48. I brought up briefly before, and it's 48, 4,000 or above peaks. I want to start whacking those things, man. I'm like, I'm going to go hit as many as I can. So this Pemigewasset Wilderness is part of the White Mountain National Forest. I've done a lot of hiking in there, particularly this hike. This hike is called the Pemi Loop. Now, the Pemi Loop goes around this whole Pemigewasset 46,000 acre wilderness, and it's 13 mountain peaks in a circle, okay? And there's one mountain peak in the middle, Owl's Head, in the center. So you have this big area of protected forest with all these ravines and brooks. These two brooks I want to talk about in particular, and they're on a lot of my videos. What's great about what I'm telling people, they can go on my channel. Mm-hmm. They can watch where I'm going, because what I'm telling you right now is where you can go on Google Earth. I tell people this every time. Go on Google Earth, look up Owl's Head in Lincoln, New Hampshire. When you look, you're going to be like, oh, wow, look at this ravine. Look at how this ravine and the brooks that run through these ravines, to me, is like a highway for animals. It is a highway for any wild thing out there. So this trail you go on on this huge Pemi Loop, they have one trail called the Franconia Brook Trail. This Franconia Brook Trail, this trail runs for miles into this Pemi wilderness, to where we were about 6 miles into this hike, into this big hike. Now, where we were heading was this tent site. This tent site is 6 miles from any road. There is nothing out there. There is a caretaker that you have to pay when you get out to that tent site. Because in the White Mountain National Forest, they have these tent sites spread out. And they have these caretakers that work there. And they switch off every 3-4 days. They switch off. You pay them a fee. Out there is an outhouse. And they have these little tent platforms that you can stay at for the night. It's like $15 a night. You get what you get. You know what I mean? For staying out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Being what happened to me back in 2003, I can't sleep. I can't stealth camp. I can't stay alone in a tent, man. Not after what happened to me that night. So when I go to these tent sites, there are other hikers. There are other people. I feel I am okay with that. I'm good with that. It's just I can't be alone, man. Not.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
And there have been times I've planned on a hike. I'm like, I'm doing this big hike. I'm going to stealth camp at this pond. I can't, dude. I chicken out and I stay at the tent sites. I can't.
It's called PTSD, brother. It's real.
I've come to the fact that I think about this shit every day. That it definitely it affected me, and I didn't even see the thing, but what I felt has affected me. What I felt that night. But okay, so I'm going up this Franconia Brook Trail to this 13 Falls Trail. Really gorgeous. If you're going out here in July and August, the foliage, it is full. You can't even see in some of these areas that you're hiking. It's like you're in a tunnel. The foliage is so thick. You're going down this little tunnel. It's very intimidating sometimes because of the wildlife, that is out there that you can't even see 3 yards into the wood line. Like, it's so thick, so thick. So it's me and Chewie. I have my GoPro, and we're going down this path, and there's no one else. It's just this one trail, man. So we're going. All of a sudden, about 8-9 feet up, this branch shakes. This branch shakes as I'm going by. As soon as that branch shook, dude, I did a 180, and I went back like 20-30 yards. I went back 20-30 yards. I was so scared. But I didn't want to freak out and start running. I have a 40-pound pack on. We're doing a multi-day hike. Like, all I did was just turn around and walk back. Now, I have my GoPro. And I'm thinking when that shake happened, man, when that tent encounter from 2003 just rushes back to me. Everything just came back to me. That fear of not knowing what the heck just happened. Because when I saw that shake, right away, I was like, oh, I'm thinking Sasquatch. I'm thinking Sasquatch. So I have my little GoPro. I am there waiting for this thing to pop out, on the trail. And I'm seeing the branches high up. They're still kind of moving. And I'm like, oh my God. I got Chewie right next to me. So in that, I was probably waiting 1 or 2 minutes. It was that long. All of a sudden, out on the trail comes this big freaking moose. I mean, full rack, big male moose, full rack. First time I ever seen a moose in real life. I had seen him on TV, but man, when you see him on TV and you see him in real life,
oh, they are giants.
And this was a giant.
They're giants, man.
This boy had a full rack. First thing I think of, I went from pure, like, it was almost like, oh, it wasn't a Sasquatch, to like, oh, I don't want to get trampled and die. I'm thinking, I'm like, I am in the middle of the trail with my GoPro like this, the dog on the side of me. I look down at the dog when this is happening, when the freaking moose comes out on the trail. He was more scared than me. I'm like, there's one thing I got to say about Chewie, because this is going to come into effect later in my stories. Anything a deer and lower, he's going to chase it. It's like a shark sensing blood in the water. There's no recall. He will chase anything, squirrels, chipmunks, anything a deer and lower. He is just going to beeline and chase that thing. That day, he wanted nothing to do with that moose. Nothing to do with that moose. So I'm waiting as that thing trudges. All it was doing, it was eating the vegetation, the moose, just eating all the vegetation. And I'm just there waiting, scared. And I'm like, man, do I go behind a tree? I'm like, what do I do? I'm like, because I know their vision isn't that great, but their hearing is good. I didn't know what to do.
And their brain's like that
Their
big.
brain is like a peanut. I probably could have just ran at it and it probably would have just ran away. But
I don't know about that. I wouldn't try it.
You think the rut? I didn't know anything about the rut. I didn't know anything about moose. So I waited. I waited for the thing to kind of get off trail a little bit. The funny thing is, Chewie wears a harness. Like he's got a harness. I put a GoPro on it now.
Yeah. It's a great idea, by the way.
I had to pull him. I had to pull him by the moose that was already probably about 15 yards off of the trail. But I had to pull the damn dog by that moose. But I'm bringing up that story because it brought back everything. Everything I buried away from 2003, that 10. It brought back that feeling of scared, of just scared stiff. Like... I love finding the trackway. He's a good guy.
No, these guys are having quite a conversation in this chat right now, and I keep trying. I'm smiling because I can't help it.
But I tell you, after that thing that happened with the moose, I was like, I have to get answers. I'm like, I have to get answers of what happened to me back in 2003 in that tent. So when I got home from that hike, I type in like Sasquatch in New Hampshire. I started typing in stuff. I wanted to see what answers I would get. And then like when I typed it in, Coas County Wood Devil pops up. I'm like, I had no idea what that meant. I'm like, Wood Devil? I'm like, no, Sasquatch. Then I go read into it. Back in the 1800s, in New Hampshire, in early 1900s, when they saw these creatures, and these creatures made a screeching sound, they called them wood devils.
Yeah.
Wood devils.
Wood devils, Indians, stone man,
wild men,
hairy man.
Of course, you know as well as anyone else, once you start going down that rabbit hole, there's no getting out, man.
Yeah.
So I just start listening to Sasquatch Chronicles pops up.
Yeah.
Now, when Sasquatch Chronicles pops up, I start hearing other people's encounters. I got obsessed. I started listening religiously to get answers. I wanted to see if anyone had the same experience I did. So when I start hearing these other encounters, and I start hearing similar encounters, I start hearing about people that mess within their tent, rocks thrown at their tent. You start to connect the dots. I started to connect the dots. And I remember listening to one of these episodes of Sasquatch Chronicles. Now, I was a nut. Like I told you, I was going hiking. I'm trying to get these lists done. I was going every other weekend. I am driving up to New Hampshire and I am hiking. I have hiked all over New Hampshire the past 5 years. I know New Hampshire better than my own state. That's how much I'm up there. So I have been now where I'm at with everything that's happened. I want to learn about the geography. I want to learn about all these small pockets in the wilderness that nobody can set foot in because there's no trails going out there. When you look at the map on New Hampshire and you see these huge areas in the White Mountains that there's maybe one trail, two trails going in and out, and there's no roads. If I was something and I didn't want to be found, that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. So
it's hard, but the thing about it too that people don't understand, when you have hunters and they say things like, I've been in the woods my whole life,
and I've never seen it,
and I've never seen anything. Somebody once put it like this, and I forget who I first heard this from, but it's the best way you can put it is, are you able to be in all the woods at all times?
Exactly.
Because if you're not, then you can't say that there's so many places in just the United States, in the forested land of the United States, that man will never set foot in. Just won't
No.
happen. We can't. It's too rough. It's too rugged. It's too remote. We will not get there. And when you have forested land so vast, like it is in New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, crap. Even listen, 13,000 acres of Patchogue State Forest here in Connecticut.
In
There,
Connecticut,
there ain't
yes.
enough people in that forest at all times to ever make it so these creatures, these beings, are going to be found if they don't want to be found,
Exactly.
man.
And people think that don't go into the woods. These couch people, these couch potatoes that have to put their 2 cents in. Go, come out with me on one of my hikes. Come out with me. Let me show you what going off trail is like, because you're not going to want to do it.
It's tough.
If you go off trail and you twist an ankle and you are way off trail, good luck trying to get help. Good luck trying to get found.
And you're like me too a lot. You go by yourself pretty often.
I am by myself all the time.
Right.
It's just me and my dog.
It's a different beast, man. When you're by yourself, I have nobody. Nobody goes with me ever. I am always by myself. And so when I start going off trail, I there's things that I do so that I know how to get back towards the trail, because like you said, in the woods around here, if you go off trail, if you get spun around even a little bit, it's so difficult, man. Things look so similar no matter which way you're looking. If you don't know the area well, it's going to be very hard to get back to that trail.
Dude,
especially if you start to freak out.
Whoa, and that is the key, is not freaking out. And there have been a couple of times that I haven't recorded it, but I have gone off trail and I don't know where the hell I am. And you can't freak out, because that's the worst thing that could happen, is freaking out. And I just remember how long it took me one time to find the trail. I was scared. I was scared, man. But I had everything I needed in case something happened. You know, I have my satellite phone. I can just hit that SOS. They know exactly where I am. But to like you were saying, it's so easy when you are off trail, even a little bit, to get a little discombobulated and totally lose the trail. And if you start walking the wrong direction, like that poor girl did on that lost her life not 6 months ago, you just one wrong turn and your life is over.
And the other thing is, if you've been in this community, this field for a while, you understand that there's a lot more going on in this world that we know about. So I've had 2 occasions, this is no lie, I've had 2 occasions where my compass failed. It didn't work. It stopped moving. It just froze, bro. Just froze. Not on a cold day, nothing like that. It just froze. And I'm standing there, I'm tapping it, I'm shaking it, I'm going, why is this thing not moving? Didn't matter what I did, spin around, up, down, didn't move. So, those things, man, like that stuff can happen. These things can happen. These weird anomalies. I've had equipment fail, and all this stuff. It's a sketchy thing.
It is, man. It is.
I had Joe and Jesse from Hellbent Holler were here. I don't know if they're still here, but thank you for being here. I love those guys so much. So much admiration for them. But they, what they do is every so often they'll send a message from one of their phones so that it pings their location and saying, hey, we're safe. And they'll do this, over and over when they get a little further, so that there's a proverbial trail of breadcrumbs, as they say, which is such a smart thing to do.
Yes.
And it's such a simple, easy thing. It takes 2 seconds. Boom. Hey, I'm safe. This is where I'm at. Boom, boom, boom. And you're done.
And I can do that on I have a Garmin InReach. So you can
Boom.
flag points. So every time There we go. That's what I use. So we use the same thing. What a tool. What a great tool. And the battery lasts a long time. I can go on a 2 or 3 day mountain trip and that thing still has juice left. Very, very good survival tool is those Garmin InReach. Yes.
I'm going to have to look into it. I don't have one of
The
those.
personal locator. Yup. I love that SOS. I mean, you ever get into any trouble and you have that thing, you have a good chance of getting found. So
That's the personal locator is that I have that. That's just the thing that you hit that it sends a signal.
That's on your cell phone, right? Is that what you're talking about?
No, there's a actual piece of equipment that's you can buy it and it sends out a signal.
Oh, okay. Yes.
In case you get lost. It doesn't have to connect to like cell phone service. It's satellite. I think.
A satellite. And that's the safest thing to use because you're gonna get satellite service. You're not gonna get cell phone service out. Where I go, you don't get cell phone service as far out where I go.
I'm sure not.
You don't. Sometimes on the peaks you get it, but no, not when you're in the woods. Which I'll get into that in my next story, on my next hiking story on what happened, because this is where it starts to get to like the oh shit stuff.
Let's talk about the oh shit stuff.
Now, like I said, I was hiking, I was doing all these peaks, and by 2021, May of 2021, I was already into like the 40, like I was like at number 43 on this hike. Number 43 I was doing. It's not expensive. It's not that bad. I paid a couple $100 for mine. And then you can get different plans. You can even not use a plan and still have the SOS. So you can just use it. But anyway, I'm doing this, like I said, this next hike. Now, like I said, now we've been all over New Hampshire. We're 3 years into this journey of this New Hampshire 48. So we are back in the Pemigewasset. We are back in that region where I had the moose encounter. Now, this Owl's Head hike is the hike that nobody doing this New Hampshire 48 list, no one wants to do this hike because it's a 19.2 miles or 18.2 mile hike. And it's into the middle of nowhere. And at the top of this mountain is no views. It's a 4,000 foot mountain with no views. And it's over an 18-mile out and back hike. So I'm like, I didn't want to save it for my last hike because you kind of want to save a special mountain for your number 48. You don't want to go with the crappiest no view. You want something with epic views. So I'm like, I got to get this mountain over with. So we do this. It's 8 miles. Just to the base, just to get to the base of the mountain. That's how far in you have to go into the wilderness, this Pemigewasset wilderness that I told you about, this 46,000 acre wilderness. And like I said, around that wilderness are all these 4,000 foot peaks, 12 of them that go in a circle, and you can do that Pemi loop. Well, like I said, this Owl's Head was in the middle. So you're going to the middle of this Pemi wilderness. And it's a protected forest. Now, this trail I'm using is called the Lincoln Brook Trail. That trail I used on that moose encounter, it was the Franconia Brook Trail. So these two break off. I was going to the left of that trail, that Franconia Brook, where I had the moose encounter. That Franconia Brook is going to come into a factor later. That's why I keep bringing it up, not just because of the moose. I want to give as much detail to the geography of where I'm at, because I want people to know what I'm talking about. And the best thing is they can go watch it. They can go see what I'm talking about. But since we're on a live podcast, I'm going to explain it. This Lincoln Brook runs for miles into the Pemi Wilderness. And it's pretty much the trail you use to go to this Owl's Head. Now, on this trail, there is a bushwhack you can take. A bushwhack is just a trail that isn't used much, and they call it a bushwhack. It's a shortcut. For me, I was saving a half mile out and back. I'm going to save that half mile on this 18-mile hike. So I take this Black Pond Trail bushwhack, and it takes me to this black pond, a beautiful pond in the middle of nowhere. I have beautiful pictures of it, and it's a place we were just going to water up, take a break, and get back on that bushwhack and save that half a mile where I didn't have to keep crossing over that Lincoln Brook and getting wet. It was the smartest thing for me to do, was take this bushwhack. So after we leave the black pond, we're on this bushwhack. Now, like I said, I film all my hikes with my GoPro. By this time, Chewie has a GoPro. So I've gone from me just having a GoPro to getting more GoPros, always getting the newer one. Chewie getting hand-me-downs. So I have a harness for Chewie that I told you about. And I ended up rigging up a GoPro to his back. So that's a unique thing in our channel, on the Brian and Chewie Go Hiking channel, is I have footage on our hikes. I'll put in some clips of Chewie hiking. You know, you see his ears and you just see him running.
Which is a great idea, by the way.
It's a great idea. And I try to get him. I always yell before we get to the peak. I'm like, Chewie! So he comes back and I turn it on so I can get him going up to the peak. So that's the thing. That's my thing out there doing, is filming me and my dog on our adventure. Now, I want to bring up real fast before I get into what happened on this black pond. I only started my channel back in 2018. I only started my channel because my dad lived in Arizona, and my dad loved hiking. My dad was an avid hiker. He started hiking before I did. He would send me these beautiful, beautiful pictures from Arizona. And I was like, oh my God. And me getting into like being in shape and wanting to do things, I'm like, oh wow. So now I live for those views. I live for those vistas at those peaks. Anyone that knows me now knows I am all about the epic views. Like, that's all I say out there. So I'm on this Black Pond Trail. My GoPro's I put my GoPro away after we started hiking again. I can't film every freaking minute of my hikes. My battery will run dead. I'm out here for 7 or 8 hours on this hike. I just do clips. I'm turning it on. I am saying where I'm at, what I'm doing. Okay, it's a tag along. I do tag along videos. So we're walking on this, and I'm about a half mile from the main trail, the Lincoln Brook Trail. All of a sudden, to my right, I get these 6 knocks. Whack, 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 whack. 6 of them. Loud enough to where it's making me blink. It's making me blink. It's like when someone is banging a hammer and you're not aware that they're going to stop banging a hammer near you. Kind of. That's what happened when I heard those knocks. But when I heard those knocks, right off the bat, I thought whatever came to my head, just like that night in the tent, I thought right off the bat, like when I heard the growl, I thought bear. Like I thought whatever came to my head first, like whatever, because you don't know. I'm thinking woodpecker. And I'm like, after it happened, and I'm like, wow, that was a loud woodpecker. But to where I'm trying to tell myself that it was a woodpecker when it wasn't a friggin' woodpecker. 10 to 12 seconds go by. Okay. To my left, 6 knocks. 6 knocks further away. Okay. Now, when that happens, I am confused. I am confused. I am still not. Now, what I want to tell people, when stuff like this happens to you, first thing you're not thinking about, I got to pull out my GoPro. I was not thinking that at the time. GoPro did not come into my mind until after the next set. Way off to the front of me. Way off to the front, another 10 to 12 seconds. 6 freaking knocks. Way off to the front of me. So that is first to my right, then to my left, and then to the front of me. Then, after that happened, I'm like that. Jaw drop. I pull out my GoPro. I take the lens off. I hit record. First thing out of my mouth. Holy shit. That's the first thing I said. And I have it on my channel. And it's something I didn't want to share, but because of hearing other people with their knock encounters with the 6 and 3, I had to share my reaction. So I have my reaction seconds after this shit happens. So I'm saying what happens on the GoPro. I'm saying what happens. I'm looking at the dog. That's a lot of what I do on my hikes because Chewie is always ahead of me.
Mm.
I know him so well on how he acts with certain animals, certain stuff that's going on, like when his ears go up and he's looking, he gets on that high alert. That's when I'm going to get on alert and see what he's looking at. And I think why we have all these, why we've had these little weird things happen to us. We are so quiet out there when we're hiking. When I come up on like a group of 2 or 3 people, they are so loud when you are out in the wilderness on the trail and there's none of that city sound, there's none of that other noise. You can hear voices for
yeah,
long time. They are so. I'm times when I'm on the trail and I hear people. They are still so far. I am still walking and I'm like, where the hell are they? They are so far away. But when you are in that quiet wilderness, that noise travels.
Absolutely does.
When it's just me and Chewie, and when you're not talking to anyone, you are very quiet out there. When you're walking in the woods alone, you're not making much noise. You're making your footsteps. So a lot of the times when I'm out on these long hikes, we're quiet. We're not shooting the shit. I'm not talking to my dog out there. You know what I mean? We are very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So when these knocks, when they happened, and I'm saying what's happening on the GoPro, and I am walking back and forth. I am so confused, but I am kind of not getting. I'm scared. Okay, I'm scared. I look down at my watch that tracks my steps. I am 10,500 steps away from my vehicle. I know how many miles I am into this hike. I am out in the middle of nowhere. I am over 4.5 miles out into the middle of nowhere. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, there's freaking nobody out here. There is not. I could see, because when I tell this story sometimes, I'm one of my friends, he's a skeptic, of course. He's like, how do you know it wasn't people messing with you? I look at it and I'm like, dude, are you telling me that not just one guy, not just 2, but 3 people came up with this idea to go 10,600 steps into the Lincoln Woods, go into a triangular fashion and wait for this hiker to come by and mess with them? That's how I'm looking at it. I'm like,
of course. We have this. I have this conversation often with Fresh that we come across like stick structures in the woods or whatever, and the ones that are off trail, the ones that 3, 4, 5, 6 miles into the woods off trail, and you've been hiking for hours, and you come across a stick structure, and somebody says, "Well, it could have been made by a human." Well, okay, maybe, but tell me how many humans you've come across that tell you they hike 8, 5, 6 miles into the woods off trail and then spend the next 4 hours building some stick structure up in a tree. Like,
You're
who
right.
does that?
It doesn't make sense unless there's nuts out there that do that.
Yeah, is there a structure club I'm not aware of?
Now, I'm recording, okay, and I'm walking back and forth on this trail. I'm trying to figure out I'm saying, I'm like, what the F is going on?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going. I even set it to the GoPro. I'm just gonna keep going. Shut the GoPro off. Put it back in my pocket. All right. We start walking again. Not even a minute goes by, dude. 6 knocks to my right. 6 knocks to my right. I was so scared. For one, a lot of people know that watch my channel. I don't carry a weapon. I don't carry a weapon out there. I carry a little tactical freaking 6-inch knife that's not going to do much to anything big. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got out there. I don't carry a gun, which I should. And Alex Petikoff says all the time, man, you should carry a gun out there, not for the animal factor, for the human factor, because you got some nuts out there. You know what I mean?
Man.
And it's something I need to do. It's something I need to do. But when those 6 knocks happened again to my right, now that is weird because I am thinking about the knocks prior that just happened minutes before, and it started to my right. It started closest to me. And for it to do it again with 6, when that happened, now, like I said, the last time, 10 to 12 seconds, it happened. So, to my left, after the ones to my right happened again, 3 knocks to my left in the same area where I heard them prior. I was like, at that time, I felt like I was in a crossfire of communication. I felt like I was in a crossfire of communication. That's the only way I could explain it. The woodpecker thing left my mind after it was happening all around me in 3 areas. Because after I got the 3 to my left on that second round, to the front of me, 3 effing knocks.
How far away do you think?
Dude, the ones in the front were far. Now, as I told you, I went off this bushwhack. I went off this Black Pond bushwhack trail, okay? On the other side of that pond that I went to do the bushwhack is the Lincoln Brook Trail. Is that brook trail I was going to go on to where is the direction, if I went that way, that was the direction to where I heard that knock. That was way in the front. I'm talking far in the front. I'm not saying like 100 yards. No, it was far because you could hear it faintly, but you could hear it. It wasn't a friggin' echo. Hearing the 666 and then to the right of me doing 6 again and then 3 and 3, I was like, that is crazy. That is some kind of communication. I was so freaking scared. I put the GoPro back on after it happened again. Now, I know a lot of people that are listening to me right now will be like, oh, this friggin' guy, like he turns his GoPro on after shit happens. Well, I'm sorry. That's how it happened. That's how it happened in that moment. I put that freaking thing back on and I was like, it just effing happened again. I'm explaining it.
What
Now,
people don't understand a lot of times too is that when people go out without any intention of filming these beings, without any intention of having activity or interaction with them, you're not thinking about these things. It's not a premeditated thing where you're like, well, let me make sure that I have backup batteries and backups to the backups and all the right cords to connect so that when my phone dies, I can plug it into the portable battery bank and have something going at all times. Like you said, you're out there for hours and hours and hours. You can't have your camera on for every moment.
It's boring. These hikes aren't fun. It's fun when you get to the top and you can reap the rewards. But I am not always recording my boring 8-hour hikes. There's just not enough. There's no point. There's no point to keep one rolling. I am not investigating Sasquatch.
Right.
I am not an investigator, everyone. I am a hiker. I am a hiker who has had some weird shit happen, and I am here to tell what has happened, whether it was a Sasquatch or not. I'm just saying some weird shit that I can't explain. And why I appreciate these platforms, why I appreciate people like you, other shows, Sasquatch Chronicles, to have that platform for people that can't explain something that's happened to them, to be able to come to a place like this where people can either relate or they can understand because they've heard it before from other people. And that's what these shows have done for me. Because for me, it was looking for answers. For me, it was the live chat. For me, it was connecting with the people in live chat. For me, it was asking if anyone's had anything similar happen to them. And when I find that connection with someone like you who's had something happen that changes your life, man, you got that bond that a lot of people don't have. I've felt the vocals. You've seen the damn thing. You know what I mean? Like it changes you. It changes your life. But when I'm out on these hikes, I'm not letting what happened to me affect my life in any way. I still like going out and hiking and doing what I love to do. And I'm not out there all the time thinking about it. Is it on my mind a lot? Oh, yeah, it's on my mind a lot. Like it's on my mind every day, but I don't let it affect what I love to do. And I don't let it take over what I love to do. I'm going to film my hikes. I am not going to go out. I enjoy going out and investigating once in a while. I've enjoyed going out with Alex Petikoff and the Small Town Monsters. I've loved going out on a couple of investigations. That is really fun to stay out at night, all night, and wait for something to happen, and just how different it is, the wilderness at night and the day. If I was something that wanted to stay hidden, that's when I'm going to move around. I'm going to move around when there's nothing else going on, where I can't be seen. To me, is the perfect camouflage for them is being their nocturnal selves. That's my opinion. You do get the daytime sightings, which we have many in New Hampshire, that my buddy still gets stuff sent to him, which is great. It's great to have connections like that with Alex and Evan, my buddy who does this stuff. He goes by New Hampshire Sasquatch. Getting all these encounters and getting all this information is where I'm at right now. For me, it's about getting out information. It's about sharing what's going on in the Northeast. Specifically for me is New Hampshire, because that's where all the stuff's happened to me. It's kind of my home away from home, you could say. But when those knocks happen, man, when those second round of knocks happen, I am on my phone that has no service. I am texting Alex. I'm texting Alex Petikoff. I'm texting him everything that is going on. I remember I am there. I was in that area for probably 25 minutes after those knocks. Now, you got to remember, I'm on an 8-hour hike. This is an 8-hour, over an 18-mile hike. So at this time, it's probably late morning. I started pretty early. I'm texting this kid. I'm texting him and I'm telling him what's happening, because he lives in New Hampshire. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, if I could get him here like ASAP, like he could find out, he could help me. I don't want to say get out of here, but kind of help me through this.
Yeah, right.
But I had no service. So I'm like, all right, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to keep going. Like, I latched up the dog and I left that area. I got back onto the main trail. I get on my GoPro and I'm just saying what just happened. I'm like, I got to talk to my buddy and who deals with this shit. That's exactly what I said. I have to talk to my buddy who deals with this shit. And it was Alex. Finally, my freaking message goes through. When I'm getting to the top of the peak. He gets back to me. He's like, whoa, what? I was like, I'm like, dude, there is some shit going on out here right now. And I'm scared. So he's like, oh, really? He's like, call me back later. So I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I know he's hours away. Like me thinking, man, I'm going to get help or get one of my buddies out here to kind of help me share what's going on.
In the moment, that's what you're hoping.
In the moment. Yeah. And he, at that time, he was the only one I was comfortable with talking about this stuff with. He was the only guy that reached out to me. The first guy that reached out to me when I came out with my encounter on my channel. I remember I came out, it was like it was a month after my dad died that I came out with my encounter. I was holding this weight on me for 17 and a half years. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anyone what happened to me that night in the tent. And I think after losing my dad, and I was so emotional after that, and all I wanted to do after that time, all I wanted to do was hike. That's all I wanted to do was hike. And I wish I could have shared it sooner with my dad. I wish I could have shared that with my dad, but after him dying, I needed to share what happened to me. I needed that weight lifted off me, because I was such an emotional wreck. I needed to tell someone what happened to me that night in the tent. I needed that. you want to tell people in your family. You want to tell people what happened. You want the people that care about you to know how much it's bothering you. But you don't want to get that look. I didn't want to get that. I'm trying to explain it without getting emotional.
That I understand. I know what you're saying. You don't ever want to be looked at like you're the parents that you look up to don't believe you, or they think that somehow you're maybe sensationalizing something,
Yes,
looking
and
for
I think
attention.
yes, and I think when he died, I lost that opportunity to have that.
No.
I don't
yes, I understand.
in a way, but that what happened if with him leaving, with him passing on, I needed to tell my story. So I'm on this hike. I am on this hike on the Appalachian Trail in the winter, and I'm like, I gotta tell my story. I'm like, I have to get this off my chest. So I spent like 17 minutes just filming myself for the first time ever talking about it in such detail of what happened in that tent. And I kept that uploaded, like ready to upload for like a month, man. I sat on it because I was so afraid of the negativity. I didn't want the negativity. I didn't want to read negative comments. But then I'm like, you know what? I'm like, it's time. I hopefully someone will reach out to me that I can talk to about this stuff. So I uploaded it on my channel. And then I upload it onto Sasquatch Chronicles fan page on Facebook. And as soon as that happened, it just blew up. It blew up to where I am getting comments galore. I am getting all this positive feedback. I am getting all these comments from people from New Hampshire that are like, oh, wow. It's like, I never knew that they were around here, to where I'm getting people that have had encounters from New Hampshire reaching out to me. People that have felt the vocals are starting to talk, that are reaching out to me. I was like, I'm like, Brian, why couldn't you have done this sooner, man? Why couldn't you have done this sooner? Because all your answers are coming. Everyone is, it was just this whole wave of answers. And I get this instant message on Instant Messenger. This guy I didn't know, he wasn't a friend. He's like, hey man, he's like, I just saw your story. I just listened to your encounter you posted on the fan page. And he's like, I'm from New Hampshire. He's like, I am a documentarian. He's like, I do this stuff a lot. He's like, I do it on my own. He's like, I am just a local in New Hampshire. So I'm like, I got to look up this guy before I talk to him. So I look him up, and it's Alexander Petikoff. And I'm like, who is this guy? Who is this Alexander Petikoff?
Only one of the nicest guys in the community that you could possibly run into.
But then, back then, I just see this dude with sunglasses, hat, and a beard in the winter, and his profile picture. I'm like, who is this guy?
I joke with him. I say he's the Chuck Norris of the Bigfoot community.
He is the Chuck. He's got such a beautiful beard. It's funny because Chewie hates beards. Something happened to him to where he hates guys that wear those Herman work boots, and he hates beards. So something happened to him where he was a puppy that even when if I wear those work boots, he tail between the legs, he is running and crying and hiding in a corner.
Man, that's crazy. That's what my nephew does when he sees me. My little 18-month-old nephew.
Did you beat your nephew?
Everyone keeps saying it's because of the beard, and I'm like, he's 18 months old. What does he have against beards?
He fears the beard, man. He fears the beard.
The beard.
But I totally lost my spot on where
I'm sorry. No, you were talking about how Alex reached out to you.
Yes. So it's funny because my dog, like I said, he hates beards. He met Alex a few years ago now. He meets Alex, and Alex has that beard. It was the first time. Chewie never growled, and Chewie went right up to him and let him pet him. That has never happened. So Alex has that aura around him.
It's a testament to who he is. Yeah,
it is a testament to who this guy is, because what you see in his documents, in his videos is how he is in real life.
He's such a humble guy.
Humble, well-spoken, smart. Yeah. Very smart.
Very smart.
And for his age, knows so much.
His brain's like a steel trap, man.
Oh my God, man. Every time I go out with this guy and we go hiking or it's an investigation, whether we're talking about glacial erratics, stuff that was formed back, or where porcupines go at night, he's showing me this stuff, and sure enough, there's all the porcupine scat, like where he shows me. I am learning something every time I am with this guy. He's such he's a great friend to have. He is a great tool to have in the Sasquatch world, because the traveling this man does is
crazy.
We don't get to hike much together because this guy is always out and about. Like, he was just in Louisiana with the Bigfoot mapping project guy.
Yeah.
He is doing some phenomenal things. And what's great is the plans that we have coming up for some of his Beyond the Trail up in the Northeast. Like, I'm hoping this melt goes away pretty quick up in the Northeast. Like spring comes soon, because there are some good ideas that he's got that I want to be a part of. I'm
so jealous.
Oh, it's such a fun ride, man. It's so nice, because I tell Alex, I'm like, listen, man, whenever you're on the East Coast, I'm with you, dude. Like, I got your six. I got your back. And he loves Chewie, and Chewie loves going, and we use Chewie in the investigations. It's really fun. It's been a fun ride. So when Alex reached out to me, and I didn't know who he was, I'm looking up all this stuff, and I was like, oh, wow. I'm like, he does some really good stuff. So I accept the friend request, and I start talking to him. And since that day, like, we have just been, like, we had that connection with hiking first. Like, he's a hiker. He's done the 48. So we have that bond with the hiking. But then, of course, now we got this whole thing with the Sasquatch world too, and how involved he is with that in the YouTube world. And I think what the STM crew does, what the Small Town Monsters crew, what they put out is phenomenal, man. I mean, you see how they film stuff, and it's none of that woo. I am not a woo person. No, it's no BS. And that's what I like about Alex and that crew. They're not just putting out stuff to put out stuff. It's you see what you get in what they're doing. There's no fakery. You know what I mean?
I'm going to challenge you.
Okay.
I'm going to make a bold claim right now. If you continue to go out into the woods and you start really putting in time trying to research more, I bet you in the next 3 to 5 years you will probably end up coming over to the other side. I promise you, man, you're gonna come across things where you just go, I don't understand. Like, there has to be something more going on here. It just makes no sense. But I get it. I understand. I never, ever, ever will tell anybody that their theory's wrong, because I don't know that mine's correct. All I know is what I've experienced, what I've seen, what I've heard, and the things that have made me go, I don't get it. I just don't get it.
And that's something I am learning, because when I first started, and you hear, you hear about when I first started hearing about portals and just stuff people post, I used to get mad. Like, I used to be like, come on, man. But that is the problem we have in this community, is we all get mad at each other.
No, don't get mad.
Exactly. And I am learning that. I am learning to
exist.
I'm lean, and that's the problem. But we know that that's the problem in this community. It's almost like high school. You have all your little circles,
Of course you do.
and this is what it's like in this community. It's too bad. It's too bad that it's like this. That there's always like this clash. It's too bad.
But you know why there's a clash? You know what causes the clash? Is ego. Ego, brother. Ego. If you leave your ego at the door, you won't have that problem. It doesn't bother me that you don't believe in the woo stuff. It doesn't bother me that other people believe that these things are Australopithecus, or that they're strictly a caveman, or it doesn't bother me.
Mhm.
You know why? Because my ego is not big enough to think that I know everything. I believe what I believe because of the things that I've seen and heard and experienced, right? Um, and you believe what you believe because of what you've seen, heard, and experienced.
Yeah,
And if we don't agree on that, so what? We don't have
exactly.
to. We
Yeah,
agree that we have differing theories. We can still share information with each other, and then you take what you need and you leave the rest. And you walk away, maybe gaining some knowledge from each other, and maybe not. But it doesn't have to be this competition. That's why I say this all the time. This competition thing is such bullshit.
it is.
If you're not having fun doing this, then you're doing it wrong, man. Because you should be having fun. You should be enjoying yourself while you're doing this. And you can do that and still contribute to the community along the way. To have this attitude that you have a group of people, and nobody else is allowed in that group because this is the group that believes this, and we've been this way, and we've had this group for all these years, and we don't want to let anyone else in. Well, that's just not the way, man. That's just
Yeah.
not the way. I don't know if you ever watched that show, The Mandalorian.
Oh, of course.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. And so I feel very strongly about that. That we need to, as a community, do exactly what you said. We need to share with each other these things. We need to come together, and understand that we're doing a disservice to everything that this community was started on, if we're not, if we're focused on clicking up and all this stuff. I
Yeah.
don't get it, man. People may say it about my channel, but my rebuttal is, there's no click here. If you come over to my channel and you subscribe to this channel, you didn't have to subscribe. You come over and you come on one of these shows in that chat, I promise you, I guarantee you that you will be accepted into that chat with the most kind-hearted, warm people you've ever had in your entire life. So we just don't believe in that stuff here, but other people do, and it's sad. It
It
ruins
is
this.
sad. It's sad, and I see it even nowadays. I still see it, and I hate the bickering. I hate the drama, and me, I have learned to open up and not be so negative, or not. Even if it's something I don't agree with, I don't need to be a dick about it. You know what I mean?
No.
And that's something I have learned over the years of going down this rabbit hole of to not. I wouldn't want to be. I don't want someone picking on me for something that happened to me and be like, oh yeah, look at that. Like, that's bullshit. Like I don't want to do that to someone else that has had something happen they can't explain, that could be something that I was like, oh wow, I never thought of that. I don't want to be that negative ninny in the chat, because the chat to me is the most important part about this whole podcast stuff. About everything. It's about chat. The chat keeps it going. Without the chat, without the people, you have nothing. So
yeah, it's my favorite part, man. It's my
that's
favorite
why over
part.
the years, I never thought over the years, because I was never a computer person. I was never a computer geek. I just got into this whole thing when I just started my channel in 2018, 19. That's when I first started getting into YouTube. So I never had that. But now that I have like that, I call them like my chat friends. Like, they are my friends. I talk to these people I talk to these people more than I talk to my family. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
You now, if I don't see someone, like everyone knows Mr. Lee on some channels, if I don't see that guy for a couple days, I'm asking, where is he? What's wrong with has anyone seen him? Or I it's such a great community to be involved with because it's such a small community. You know what I mean? We have that little niche, the little Bigfoot community. I love the platform. Like, I just love that we have this platform to do what we're doing right now.
For sure.
So, for sure.
Yeah.
Look at that. The people on chat here are awesome. Yes, exactly.
They're amazing.
Yep.
They're amazing, man. They're amazing. And it's you know, I one of the reasons that look at Janelle's asking where's Ben and Fresh. Well, Ben and Fresh are in Is this Joe or Jesse who's saying this right now? My chat is nothing but alcoholic and fugitives from justice.
Hey, we all gotta hide somewhere.
Oh, that's great.
That's great.
But Janelle's asking where Ben and Fresh are. Ben and Fresh are across the pond, so they're 6 or 7 hours ahead of us right now. So they may be in bed. Although I doubt Fresh is in bed because that guy I don't think sleeps. I swear to God, he's a cyborg or something. He might be AI. I'm trying to figure it all out. I know for sure that he's definitely like he's like what do they call those, like MI6 or something? He's like one of those types. And he's very clandestine and moves in the shadows in his dressing gown and slippers all day with sunglasses.
Oh my! He's like the dude from Los Angeles.
That's him. That's him. He's great though. He's such a good dude. I love that guy so much. We talk every day. He's wonderful.
Oh, that's good stuff, man.
Yeah. But anyway, alcoholic and fugitives from justice. That's great. Oh man, that just made me laugh. So good. So anyway, I'm sorry. We got way
no. I always, when I'm telling my stuff, I always get off base. Way off of where I was because I just have so much shit I gotta say. But anyway, we were all past the Knox, and I was talking about Alex and all that stuff. But we might as well. I mean, I would like to get into what we found last March.
So get into it. Let's do it.
Let's get into that. We'll skip a little of my hiking stuff because it's nothing major to where it's like an oh shit, oh my god.
Well, you can always come back on the show, bro. You're welcome on here.
We can always come back and chit chat another time. Yeah, because I know my
brother.
It's too bad because I had my buddy Evan, New Hampshire Sasquatch. He was going to try to pop into live chat today and talk about some encounters, but he couldn't. He texted me like 5 minutes before. He's like, "Oh man, I can't." But he's like, "If you're ever back on, tell him I would like to come back on."
So,
he had a great encounter that I have to talk about because of where my journey is going. So after all this stuff has happened with me, and like I said, people started reaching out. This other guy reached out to me on Instagram. His name, he went by New Hampshire Sasquatch. So this is who I went by calling him that for months because that's how I would talk to him, New Hampshire Sasquatch. So he wanted to know about what I felt that night in the tent. Like, what could I compare it to, the vibration? I said, listen, I grew up in the late 90s, like going to concerts. I grew up in the early 2000s. Like I went to Woodstock 99. Like I went to that crazy show. So when people ask me, what can you compare it to, that vibration? Now, I want to bring up Woodstock 99, not because it just came out on Netflix, but because I was there. I was there for that crazy time. Now, my bucket list for this was I wanted to get front row for Metallica. My goal for that whole weekend was to get front row for Metallica. So that first day, now this concert, I highly suggest anyone that has Netflix, go watch the documentary on this show.
I watched it. It's awesome.
Dude.
It's crazy though. It's absolutely nuts.
The electricity that you could feel when Limp Bizkit was out there.
Yeah. Things got kind of crazy, though.
Things got so crazy that they stopped the show for like 20, 30 minutes during Limp Bizkit to try to calm this shit down. It was crazy.
Fred Durst didn't do a good job at trying to help them at all either.
He didn't do a good job, but what he was saying is what we were feeling because of the prices. They were gouging us.
They were
$12 for a freaking water.
Yep.
$12 for water.
And then they didn't have enough porta potties.
And stuff is breaking. So by day 3, you had nowhere to go to the bathroom.
This was not the original Woodstock. This was a money-making scheme.
This was
That's all that was.
It was a scheme to where they are hired. Security was just kids, town kids being hired for security. Yeah. But I know I'm getting off base again.
No,
I want to say, I got to the front for Metallica. And when they're playing One, and he's on that drum going, and it goes through your chest. I got to that front row, man. That freaking speaker was in front of me. And when that went through, dude, that's what it felt like in that tent. That's what it felt like, that reverberation.
That reverberation, yeah.
Right freaking through me.
Yeah.
But put the volume all the way down. So he's like, dude, I brought it up before. This is the guy that was foraging for mushrooms, and he was off trail, and he heard the growl, and it felt like a cat purring on his neck, that vibration. So we had that instant connection. And since then, we talk on the phone for hours. We talk on the phone for hours and hours. I end up he didn't know Alex. Now, both guys, investigators, being in New Hampshire, I'm like, you guys got to meet. I'm like, you got to meet. I'm like, Alex is a great guy. I'm like, you can trust him with what you're going to say. I'm like, you should go on his show. Tell him your story. Evan goes on his show. I'm going to tell Evan the counter because this is going to come into effect of what we found last March. He just lost his friend in 2018 to a car accident. Oh, Evan's young. I think at that time he was 18 or 19 at the time. So he was very depressed. And he told me, he's like, he would just go out on these rides at night to try to clear his mind from losing his best friend. So he's going down this road in New Hampshire, in central New Hampshire, Nottingham, New Hampshire. I can go to say that much. It's a dirt road, a hard dirt road. And this was Thanksgiving night of 2018. And it was snowing that night. So he had his high beams on. He's driving slow on this road. And all of a sudden he sees eye shine. He sees 2 big amber eyes looking right at him. Flips his high beams on. He sees the whole creature. He sees the Sasquatch. He sees it leaning up against a tree. Now, when Evan came with his high beams, it put over its eyes to cover its eyes from the high beams. When he said it covered its eyes, its hair was very long and stringy. Had little ice balls on it. Little snow, like what happens with a dog after it's been in the snow for a while. You get those little, things of snow, little snow beads. This beads on it. He had the detail that personally, when you have something like that happen to you, it doesn't leave you. The detail doesn't leave you. Doesn't leave ever. So
it's like it playing over on a movie screen.
It's like a broken record in your head, man.
It's like you just hit rewind.
Yeah, it's like Groundhog Day.
Rewind,
that's what we call
play.
It. It's like Groundhog Day in your mind of something traumatic. So he's telling me, he said he stopped. He stopped his friggin' car. Now, he was in a small little 4-door Infiniti. He said he was in a small car. He said the thing could have flipped his car over. You know what I mean? It was that big.
I'm sure.
But he saw everything. Schlong, everything. He saw everything. Like he knew it was a male and how big it was. And he's like, that thing was big. Everything was big. He's like, it made me feel inferior. That's how he wasn't describing it.
Well, at 8 to 10 feet tall, I would hope
He
so.
said it was about 8.5 feet tall. He could tell because of the way the tree was. He went back and looked. He said it was probably about 8.5 feet. No, he said that thing freaking looked at him. He said it looked at him like it was in disgust, kind of like when a parent looks at you when you did something wrong, and it just let out this puff of air, let out this breath, and then it just walked away, dude. It walked away.
It was probably angry that he
it was
ended
like,
up
oh
there
shit,
at that moment.
Oh shit moment. So he tells me that, and I tell him I tell him my story again and what happened and where it was, and he's like, well, mine was here, and I'm like, well, mine was up in northern New Hampshire. So for months we've been planning. We're like, hey man, like we got to get together. He's like, let's film each other where our encounters were to kind of keep a document of what happened. I said, that's great, man. I said, it's been almost 20 years. Like, I still haven't been back to that campsite where it happened to me. Because I didn't remember the exact name of the campground, but I know I was in Bartlett, New Hampshire, and I know I was only 15 minutes away from Storyland. So our plan that day was to go to his encounter spot, film it, and then drive the 2 hours up north and go look for my spot. There were a few camping spots we had mapped out on Google Earth because I knew there was a little brook where it happened. So I am looking, and there's brooks galore up in New Hampshire. I'm like, let's go up north and we'll find it. We will go to every campsite and we will look. So we go to his spot first because it was closest. Now, it was going to rain later that night, so we wanted to kind of hurry up. We knew we were probably going to be in the rain for mine, but at least for his, we could get there and film and look around. We get to the spot. Okay, we park. Pull out my GoPro, the Chewie. We're walking over to his encounter spot. So on all these trees, on some of them, when the plow truck goes by, they hit the tree. They get so close that they put divots in the tree. He's like, there is a big divot in the tree where my encounter was. He's like, that's how I know exactly where it happened. So we're walking up. I see the divot. I'm like, oh, that's the divot, right? He's like, oh, yeah, the encounter happened right here. I'm panning. I'm looking. I pan down as I start walking over to where the tree was. I see this impression. I see this print as we're walking over to it. So as I see the print, Evan sees the print as well. And he's like, oh, dude, watch out. And I was like, oh, yeah. He's like, I tell him, I'm like, oh, yeah, I just noticed that too. And he looks down and takes a couple leaves off. He's like, dude, that's a trackway. I freaking looked out. I lose it, dude. I lose it. I am F-bombing. I totally forget. I got the GoPro going. You know what I mean? But you catch our reaction walking up to this kid's freaking encounter spot and seeing a freaking track. Seeing a track 4 years later. 4 years later. So I'm not saying that's the same track from the same, you know what I mean, but to find a track walking up to where he had his encounter 5 feet away from the tree blew my mind. Of course, I was suspect. I'm like, come on, what are the odds? What are the odds of us going to his spot and finding a track? So then Evan starts looking behind the track we see. He's like, dude, I see tracks. It was a bunch of leaves pressed down, crunched down to the impression of a foot, like really down. And we're walking around the same area, and our feet are not going anywhere near the depth of these prints. So the two prints that we found after we found that one on the road. Now this road isn't like this soft dirt. It's a dirt gravelly road. And I have the cast right here that I'm going to show, but you could see all the gravel on the goddamn thing. It was a hard road where you're not making impressions on it, just walking on it that day, like us walking, Evan walking. Evan's a big guy. Evan's like 6'4", almost 300 at the time. He wasn't making anywhere near the depth of the impression of that, what we saw. So he's like, man, he's like, let's go across the road and see if we find anything else. So I look to see where that track is. I look at diagonal right across the street, dude. I see this impression from freaking 15 feet away. I beeline it. I got the GoPro going. I beeline right to that track. I beeline it. I was like, dude. He looks at me. He's like, dude. We have this dude moment. He's like, you have got to be effing kidding me. He runs over, okay? He starts pulling a couple of leaves that were on top of it. He's like, toes. I'm like, oh my effing God. I lose it. And I'm sure there's a few people in here that have seen it that I know there's a couple of people in here that have seen it. It's just F-bombs galore, man. Because of what we are seeing for the first time and getting the reaction on the GoPro was like, it was like,
can't help it, man.
It couldn't get any better than what was happening at that moment. But when I look down and I see the impressions, the toe impressions, that's when I was like, oh my God, because I wasn't sold on that flat one, the one I have. I wasn't sold because I needed more.
Right.
And right across the street, I got more. I got more and then a lot more. But I couldn't believe it. And now as I look back, I'm watching it. And as I always tell people, I always watching Chewie's reaction when I'm hiking. Man, I wish I paid attention to how much he was crying when he was near the track. It was very odd, whether he smelt something or what, but he was constantly crying. And I'm like, oh, that's so weird now that I look back and watch it, but not thinking of anything of it at that time there. Because who knows how long. We know that track was less than a day old because it had rained. It had rained the day before. So to have those toe impressions still there, we know that it was fresh. It was fresh after the rain. So to be less than a day old was unbelievable. We didn't know what to do. We had, I think Evan had 5 pounds of this mixed solution plaster, like this little 5-pound bag. I'm like, dude, that's not going to do it. That's not going to do it if we want to cast multiple tracks. I'm like, we got to call Alex. We have to call Alex. He will know what to do. So we're hoping Alex is home. Like I told you how much traveling this dude does with his Beyond the Trail. This was, because he just started the Beyond the Trail series when all this happened. So we call him nothing. We text him nothing. I'm like, oh no. So I'm like, oh, hey, Evan, I'm going to go in. I'm going to see if I find any more tracks after that good one, after that last one we found, the toe impression one. So I went into the woods. And I'm looking around and I'm just looking for anything, any kind of game, anything. And all I found was like one break. I found one break and it could have been anything. It was just one tree and I have it on the film and I looked at it on the GoPro when I was looking around, but I was so hemmed up. I was so by what was going on. I didn't focus enough on that, but it was just a tree. It was just a little branch, not a branch, but just a skinny tree that was just bent down and over and down. It wasn't twisted or anything. It was just bent down. That's the only thing I found back there besides a ton of deer scat, so it is a lot of game going down there. Now, after I went that way, I'm like, Evan, I'm going to go down the other way where we found the first track. I'm going to see what's down there. Hopefully Alex will get back to us. I go down in the direction of where those tracks were coming. And there's a huge pond down there. About a mile or two away from us is a big state park. Okay. Beautiful area. We're talking about the beauty of New Hampshire. This is one of the prettier areas. So I'm walking down there. I got my GoPro going. Of course, I wasn't shutting it off on this one. I see all these turkey feathers. I mean, a bunch of turkey feathers ripped. Some of them were ripped from the turkey, and ripped. The feathers were ripped in half, ripped off the turkey. I mean, I'm seeing these clumps here and there. I'm like, wow. You start connecting the dots, man. You start connecting the dots. I'm like, wow. I'm like, we found a possible trackway 50 yards up from where I'm finding all these turkey feathers. That really got me going. So my blood is pumping. I am going all along the waterway because it was a little softer dirt down there. I'm like, maybe I can find another track. Maybe I can find something, So after finding piles of feathers here and there, Evan yells, Alex got in touch. Alex is on the phone. So Alex finally called us. We told him what was going on. He's like, I can get down there in about an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's like, okay, man. He's like, I got to stop at Home Depot. I got to get the mix. I got to get the plaster. He's like, it's going to take 2 hours. I said, we'll send you the pinpoint. We're not going anywhere, man. Those 2 hours, man, you would not believe what was going on. After he hangs up the phone, I have never seen so much freaking traffic. In between all the,
I remember.
Before we find the damn thing, there was nothing. No cars, no people. We're getting to look back and forth at the tracks. After we get off the phone with Alex, it's like everyone started flocking to that road. We're getting people, like I said, it was a dirt road, but there were some houses down the road a bit and some private property as well. But it came to the point where these people were leaving their house, seeing these couple of weird dudes with a dog parked on the side of the dirt road for a while. Looking so shady. We were looking so shady. But what I started to wave to them. I started to wave to the neighbors. Okay. They're coming back from wherever they left and they're waving back. So I'm like, oh, it was such a weird situation to where I didn't want to look so shady. I'm going to be as nice as I can to everyone I see. So all of a sudden, so I go back down after all this weirdness happens. I go back down the waterway and I'm just looking around again. All of a sudden, Evan yells, "Truck!" I look up. I see this truck with a boat connected to it and a trailer, and it's backing up toward our trackway. I run up. I run up to the track where Evan is standing, not moving. All Evan needed was like a picket sign to be like, hell no, I won't go. He wasn't moving from this spot. And here comes this truck backing up because where we were was like a little, if you had like a little fishing boat, you could wheel it down and use like that little ramp type area.
Yeah.
That's what these guys were doing. Where we found that freaking first track, right about 10 feet away, was the where people walk down to go use like this little like just an area where you could put your kayaks in or your little boat in. So they're pulling up. And I'm not moving. I am not moving. It came to where they were within inches. Taking their boat off the thing, we're standing there like a couple of dicks. Like, we're not moving for you guys. We are not moving. You don't want to just tell a couple of strangers that just pulled up, be like, hey, man, you're right next to a possible Sasquatch track. You might want to back up, like stay away. You don't want to do that. We didn't want, that was our last resort, was having to tell these two fishermen, stay away from us, you know? But within inches of running that thing over with their boat, with their little boat wheel thing, like within inches of coming over that track, it was like a movie. It was like we were in a movie. Because right after that happened, here comes a guy walking his dog on the other side of the road, coming towards us where the freaking good track is. That good track with the toe impressions. I have my dog Chewie who was acting totally normal. This friggin' dog that this guy's walking starts lunging, like barking, lunging because of Chewie, because Chewie is near, in the area. I look at Evan, I'm like, Evan, he's going to go right into the effing track. Like, he came within inches of that friggin' dog going right into our trackway. It was so crazy, man. I'm like, Evan, I feel like I am in a movie, and I am so emotionally drained from what we have found, from what's going on. I am drained from this. Luckily, the guy just went by. Nothing happened. About 5-10 minutes later, Alex pulls up. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, thank God. So he's looking at the tracks, man. And from there on out, the rest is history, man. Like, we got to cast the tracks, okay? Now, that second track, that good track with the toes, it was on an embankment going up a ridge.
I remember that.
So Alex is like, he's like, guys, he's like, I don't know how I'm going to.
He called Cliff, didn't he?
And I'm like, and right there, I'm like, oh no. I'm like, we're not gonna be able to do it. He's like, you guys mind if I call Cliff Barackman?
Yeah, please don't call him.
No, I don't want you to talk to that loser. I'm like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And it was so great because I still had my GoPro going. You know what I mean? So to be able to catch everything as it was happening, and to be able to have Alex come kind of save the day for us because we didn't have enough plaster. I have never casted. Evan has never casted.
Oh, it's tricky, man.
Okay, so we didn't want to screw it up. So thank God Alex has done it before with all different kinds of animals. So when he called Cliff, and Cliff was like, oh yeah, you got to make like this dam. And I'm already thinking, I'm like, oh, we're screwed. Like, we're screwed. But what was good is Alex made it thick. He didn't make it very watery. It was thick enough to where he could get it all up. But the thing is, man, we're coming. He already did the first track, and then we go over to the good one. The good one. He's putting it all down. He's like, oh man. He's like, I don't think I have enough. I went from being so happy this guy showed up to being like, oh my God. I'm like, I hope he mixed enough. I'm like, because if he didn't mix enough, it's like he did enough for the heel and everything, and there wasn't enough for the toes. I was like, oh no. This was the whole point, was to get
toes,
the toes.
Yeah.
If you don't get the toes, you got nothing but something that has that silhouette of a foot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He starts using his hand to get it out. He starts using the rest of his hand to get out all the plaster, and he got it. Thank God he got it. It took a while to set because the track, it was so deep. The track was so deep. The track that Alex has right now is so thick because of the depth that thing had, the weight that it had. Because like I said, Evan put his foot, before Alex showed up, Evan put his foot near the track. It dwarfed it. Now, Evan has a size 14 foot, and his foot looked like a baby's foot compared to this. I was like, wow. I'm like, that thing has a big foot. So, and then he starts mashing his foot down into the embankment to see if he can get the depth. Now, we're talking about a guy that's almost 300. Nowhere close to the depth. So that's why we're like, oh, wow, that thing was heavy.
Even if you find tracks, this is what I'm finding more and more when I see, when I see people finding them, or even with the ones that I've found so far, even when you find tracks that are reasonable in size, not out of the realm of being a human, what you can't replicate almost ever is that depth of the impression.
The depth.
I'm a big guy, man. I'm 6'3". I weigh 300 pounds. Like I jump up and down. I'm slamming my foot into the ground, and I'm just not.
It's not even close.
I'm not
It's
getting
not
there,
even
man.
close.
Not getting there. And even if I do get a little bit, it's generally like I'll just get an indentation where my heel is because there's just not enough weight spread out over
No.
the surface area to get it,
And
to get
especially in the substrate we live in here in the Northeast, it's
so
a
many
lot of
rocks
rocky,
here, dude.
gravelly.
Oh yeah.
In New Hampshire, it's called the Granite State. It's not
Right.
called the Granite State for nothing. It's
No.
just rocks.
Yeah.
Rocks. That's why you don't get a lot of tracks. You don't find
No,
in
because
my
it's
not that,
very hard. Even in like even when you have a rainstorm and it softens just that top bit, it's only gonna be that little top layer because everything under
yes.
there is gonna be very hard packed. People we joke here in Connecticut, we say the state flower is the rock. That if you have to dig a hole in your backyard, you're every time you do this, you ding
Yeah. It's
ding,
awful. It's awful.
awful,
Just
dude,
rocks upon rocks. Yep.
awful. So yeah, we don't get a lot. It's the substrate's not really great here. You get lucky if you find, like I got real lucky with that one in the sand, and that was the craziest thing
And that's
because
it. It's luck. You were in a
luck.
sandy area and you
No,
just
I wasn't. That's the
oh
craziest part. I wasn't in any sand. There was no sand anywhere. That's the crazy thing. So I'm in the forest, and then it opens up to this really big field, and the field is grass that's 6 feet high or higher. Okay.
yeah.
There is a path through the center of the field that's probably, I don't know, maybe 8 to 10 feet wide. Like all that grass is pushed down, or maybe it was mowed. I don't remember. I don't think it was mowed, but I think it was pushed down. And
Mm-hmm.
then around the outside of that field, all the way around, just the outer edge, the same thing. All of it was pushed down. So there was a path around the outside and a path through the middle. I come through that middle path and I'm heading towards the outside ring, and all the woods surround that all the way around. It's all forest. I come out of it and I see what looked like an impression just at the edge of the grass where it meets that outer ring. Because where that outer ring was, it wasn't all grass. It was like part of it was grass and then part of it was like the hard packed rocky
Yeah. Yes.
soil and shit. But right on the edge of the outer edge where it goes into the woods, there was a 12 by 12 patch of sand. That's the only sand I didn't see any other sand there at all. None. It was the only sand I saw, and it was like whatever this was stepped from out of the field. One foot hit about I don't know, 2.5 feet onto that outer path, and then the next foot hit right at the very edge in that sand before it went up an embankment and into the woods.
Wow.
Yep.
It's awesome.
One patch of sand, dude.
Wow.
So weird.
One patch of sand. You walk in there that day.
You want to know what's even crazier? This is what's crazier, okay? The previous 2 days, we had like heavy rains.
Wow.
Okay. It just stopped raining the evening before. So this print had to have happened either that morning or that afternoon because the sand was already dry. If it had happened the day before, it would have been wet sand, right? And this was dry sand, and you could tell that the print was made when it was dry. So this had to have happened just recently. And so I followed it right into the woods and started walking around trying to find other signs. Couldn't find any other signs, but I also had something moving in the bushes in front of me. When I got close to them, the bushes started shaking, like vibrating, and we're talking 10 to 12 foot tall bushes that were vibrating. These things were going back and forth. This is all on live, dude. I freaked out, like totally freaked,
Wow.
scared the hell out of me.
So it's
Yep.
on your channel. Is it on your channel?
It's one of the very first lives that I did in the field.
I'm gonna have to go back. I'm gonna have to go watch it.
Yeah, you'll have to watch it because my reaction to it was the same as yours.
That's
dude.
what I love. I love watching someone's reaction to something they didn't know was gonna happen, or finding something that they weren't expecting. That's the best reaction because
Yep.
it's happened to me enough to where it's like, oh man, like I am so glad I got that recorded.
You can't fake that stuff, man.
Exactly.
It's
It's different
that reaction.
because I could tell you this. I could tell you what's happened to me. But what's great is some of the stuff I'm telling you, I have it recorded. So it's nice that I can talk about it and be like, oh, like go see my reaction, man. Because I'm not bullshitting you. So
No.
it's nice. I'm glad I always carry a GoPro with me, especially what I do.
Yeah.
But it was great because after Alex came and we did all the castings and stuff, and he's taken we did some investigating that day.
Yeah, you did.
For hours. We went back into the woods. We went back out at night. We went back out that night to do an investigation. This wasn't anything to do with the Beyond the Trail or anything. We wanted to get out there and just get it, because of how fresh the track was. We wanted to stay in that area that night. So we went out that night, did a couple of knocks, had a bat attack us. That was about it. We had a little bat that kept on attacking us out there. But we went back for 2 weeks. We went back 2 weeks later to do an investigation for the Beyond the Trail series. Eli came down and we stayed out there for 3 nights. We stayed out, and what sucked was it rained all during the day, and then we went out at night and did our investigating. So we got lucky in that sense. But what's great is 2 weeks later, we took one of the locals that lived close to the trackway. He wanted to. He goes into live chats and he's very interested. He wanted to see the track. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, it's been a couple of weeks, so let's go see what it looks like. Man, we go back and like I told you, it rained a lot when we were there. But man, the depth, you could still go back there and go and see the depth of that track. And he was like, wow. The only thing you couldn't see anymore were the toe impressions because of the torrential rain and the run.
Yeah, it washes the detail away.
It washes it away. So we were so lucky. And like you with us, it rained the day before we went. It rained to where it was dry the next morning. It was damp out, but it was dry. The road was hard. So the timing, it was luck. It was just luck. Any other day, we wouldn't have found it. It was just, we were lucky that one day to go see his spot and to see that, then to do an investigation, and then to have locals in that radius reach out and be like, hey, I've had something happen as well. To be able to interview them for the documentary was awesome.
That's the cool, man.
When it is so cool
to talk about it.
And this guy wanted, he's a nice guy, and he wanted, because of his job, his voice and thing blurred out. But this guy wasn't bullshitting what he heard one night walking out there. And the cops heard it too, that went to his house. So there are stories in that area. And that area I'm talking about, I call it a cluster area because of all the sightings and encounters that have been where we found that trackway. About a half mile from that trackway is the power lines. These power lines run. Hey, they run through the whole state across New Hampshire. It's like a freaking highway for wildlife where we were. And that's where we did our night investigations. A half mile to a mile from the trackway that we found to where we were investigating near the power lines. Oh. I mean, you can go watch what we found on the Beyond the Trail. We had some beaver action. I had some weird splashes happen. But we think it was probably beaver. But man, It was
I'm
crazy.
sorry, my sense of humor is warped. So
It's all right. There were plenty. It was
some beaver action, huh?
it was some
Good
beaver
for
action going
good
on.
for you, pal. Good for you.
But it was fun to go out for those
Yeah.
to see what they do in their investigations.
Yeah, those guys are
For me,
professionals, man.
yeah, to have the equipment, you know what I mean? I was using this thing that you use at a gun range, but you can turn up the volume and you can hear it.
Parabolic.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was using that night, but it's so hard because I'm hearing little steps everywhere. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it really, like, I'm telling everyone, I'm like, shut up. I said shut up so many times to everyone. Like, shut up. Because you hear crunching from so far away. And it could be a little animal for all you know.
Right.
But, man, it was such an eerie, cool thing to go investigate at 2-3 o'clock in the morning.
Totally different than during the day, man.
So different because you don't know where you're walking.
No.
You know, we are not using any lights. A couple of the guys have the night vision. For me, I'm in the dark, man. I'm letting the dog lead me. We were the leaders on a lot of these investigations that night. It was me and Chewie in the front. We're using Chewie as our sixth sense.
That's great.
Man, it was so fun, man. And I look forward, I was just talking to Alex yesterday and on Sunday. Some of the things he's trying to plan on up here in the Northeast that'll be good for the Beyond the Trail, and just some wild places we might be able to go that has some action going on right now. So we're hoping to get up to Vermont and check out this area.
I look forward to it. They just do such great work, and Alex is such a great mind, and Eli too. Eli's wonderful, man. Those guys together, they're just great. They're just great. I watch every single thing they put out, and there has been one that I haven't enjoyed. I do have to say I'm partial to the two Alaska episodes that they did in Thanksgiving and Christmas, or was it Christmas and New Year's?
It was a month apart. I know.
Yeah.
It was about a month apart. I know that because I remember when we were doing the Beyond the Trail for New Hampshire. Yeah, he's like, dude, you want to go to New Hampshire? He's like, I'm leaving in like 2 weeks. I was like, dude, I can't just. I wish I could. I can't. And then I thought about it, and then I asked him later on. It was already too late. He was like, oh man. He's like, so I kind of missed out on that ride, but I told him, I'm like, dude, anything on the East Coast, man, I am there. Like, I will be one of your dudes.
Yeah, Christ! If Alex Petikoff asked you to come with him, you just say yes. Figure the rest out later.
Yeah, I learned that quick.
I'll figure the rest out later. Alex asked me to come out. I'm going.
I don't want my wife to be mad.
All right, so never mind. That comes first. That comes first.
It does. It comes first. So.
Yeah. You gotta have happy wife, happy life.
Happy life. I say it all the time, and she loves when I say it.
Yeah, they say that. They say that.
Oh no! What happened there? Had a bad week. Lost my camera and all my content.
I know, poor guy. That sucks, man. That sucks. I'm sorry, brother.
Oh, that's awful, dude. I can relate because I went on this hike with Evan, and this is an investigation we're going to do. And man, if you ever have some extra time, this is something you might like too. We're going up to this area in New Hampshire. It's called the Dixville Notch. This is northern New Hampshire. This is near Coos County. This is the home of the Wood Devils. Okay.
Okay.
Now, in Dixville, it's hardly anyone lives up there. You're talking forest. I just did a hike up there at the end of the summer. Beautiful area. We saw 7 moose.
Is there a lot of beaver action in Dixville?
Oh, there's a ton of beaver action in Dixville. Lots of action. I love it up there. But,
sorry, go ahead.
Dude, there is this logging road that runs right through northern New Hampshire. Like, we're talking Berlin, all these hot zones from back in the day of New Hampshire encounters.
Yeah.
This logging road runs for 50 miles. 50 miles. Me and Evan went on it. He's like, dude, we're going to go on this. We're going to go through it all night. He's like, we're going to find something, whether it's moose or we're going to find something. And it is a gorgeous, secluded area. There is nobody out there, man. We go out there. We're about 5-6 miles in. Okay. Now they have these pipes that they put under the road so the water can go through them.
Drainage pipe, yeah.
Drainage pipes. Okay, we're coming up on this area. The drainage pipe was taken out. Evan, there's a big divot. Evan's like, I can make it. We're in Evan's friggin' van. We're in a van, dude. It's 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night, pitch black. He tries to go over this freaking where the pipe was gone. His freaking front end gets stuck in the ditch. Oh. He's spinning. Dude, we are out in the middle of nowhere. No service. Okay. I have all my GoPro equipment on with me. I have everything because I was filming all day our hikes in just this area we want to investigate because it is so secluded and there's so much wildlife. So I'm trying to stick rocks under his tire to spin out. Like nothing is happening. Nothing is happening. I'm starting to get freaking pissed. For one, we're in New Hampshire. I still have to drive home. I still have to drive home to Rhode Island. And we are stuck. We were stuck. Going nowhere. I told him. I look at him. I'm like, Evan, we're fucked. That's the only thing I could say. I get in his van. I am pissed. I am so pissed because what can you do? I'm like, Evan, I am putting my coat over my head. Let me know when we're leaving. Hours go by, dude. He had to hit SOS on his van. He had that OnStar. They couldn't pinpoint the exact location because we had no service. They only knew kind of the vicinity. Dude, we were out there for 4 hours. The tow truck found us. All he had to do was just give us a little push out. That's all he had to do was just give us a little tug out. So for 4 hours, we sat there. I got home at like 5 in the morning. 5 in the morning. But I slept until 1 p.m. I get up. I'm like, I'm going to go look at my GoPro footage because I had some amazing footage that I got of moose, of everything up in that area, the whole ride. I go to look for my GoPro. I can't freaking find it anywhere. I'm like, Evan, can you check? I call him up. I said, Evan, my GoPro was a GoPro 9, had all the bells and whistles. I probably had $500 worth of stuff on my with the GoPro, $500. I said, can you check your van, man? See if my GoPro's in there. He's like, dude, I can't find it anywhere. I'm like, well, guess where that thing is? That thing is right up where we got stuck on the side of the road because I had gotten up to look out and help with the vehicle. Everything was on my lap.
Oh.
So I can relate to seeking for Sasquatch right now because that sucks so bad. And for it to be, for me, a 5-hour ride to go back just to go look, I'm like,
no, yeah, forget it.
I lost so much good footage, man. I lost so much good footage of stuff. Oh, it sucked. But at least I didn't lose my trackway stuff, like all that stuff. But sucks when you lose something and it's so far away.
That does
so
suck,
make a long story long, I can relate to that one, man.
That does suck. I hope you get your stuff, man. I hope you're able to get some new stuff. Seeking, brother. I know that's a lot. You know, these are the things that it's part of the game. And you're out there in the woods, you're doing these things, you lose things, you drop things, you break things, you fall, all this stuff happens. It sucks. Especially because especially like the Sasquatch thing is whatever, the hiking thing, it's expensive when you're doing any of this YouTube stuff, when you're filming, when you're editing, all this stuff costs money, and man, camera equipment's not cheap at all.
Yeah,
and
hiking
audio equipment's not cheap.
Yeah,
and
gas, hiking.
all that stuff.
Gas
costs.
is like gold now. It's worth more than gold.
It's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. Listen, I don't mean to cut it off, but if I don't, they won't let me post this if I go too far.
Hours, dude.
Yeah, this has been great. This has been great. You've been wonderful, bro. You've been
Oh, it was
wonderful.
so fun. And I hate sometimes I ramble on and I get
No,
off.
you're good, dude. You're
But
good. Are you kidding
sometimes
me?
I get off what we're talking about. But there is so much to talk about up here that, man, it was so good. We'll chat again.
No, we're good. We're gonna have. I want you to come back on. I want you to bring your buddy with you too.
Evan wants to come back on because Evan has some great things to say, man. He's a very well-spoken young man, just like Alex. I don't know what they're doing up in New Hampshire, but they have a bunch of well-spoken people up there, man, that are involved in this.
I do. I want you guys to come back on. I think it'll be an awesome show having you both on.
It'd be great, man, and hopefully we can get Alex on too. That would be
that'd be wonderful.
4 horseman panel.
Well, listen, I really appreciate this. We'll matter of fact,
we'll talk again.
Tomorrow I'll message you. We'll talk because when we get off here, I'm going to bed.
Me too, dude.
But I'll message you tomorrow and we'll make plans. But this was great. You were wonderful. Honestly, you were great. Let me tell you something. What when you're in this seat and you're interviewing people, the best thing you can hope for is for somebody to come on who's got personality, who's animated, who's fun, and who tells a great story. And you did all of it.
I appreciate that.
You did all of it. My job was easy. I just sat here and listened, man.
And it's funny because I was just on Sasquatch Odyssey podcast with Brian King Sharp. Very great guy. You have such a good encounter, Kyle. As someone I would talk to, he is such a great guy. But I just did an interview with him, man. He didn't even talk, dude. I talked for 2.5 hours. He's like, "Hey, Brian." He's like, "I'm kind of feeling sick, dude." He's like, "If you could just talk." And I said, "Hey, Brian, I can talk, dude.
I can talk.
I can talk, and I talk a lot with my hands, so I am very animated."
Well, you did great, brother. You did great.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate talking to you, and I can't wait for us
to
go out and have.
We're gonna go out. We're gonna go out
as soon as this melting. As soon as the snow goes, dude. We're definitely gonna make some plans because
springtime hits. We're out.
I like to hit your area. I like to get into Western Mass, and
let's do it.
I mean, man, like I got so many spots in New Hampshire that are just hot zones that I want to go visit. So
let's do it. I've been saying this for a long time. Man. I've been wanting to go up north for a very long time, and I haven't done it.
You know what? And me and Evan, we're going to be starting a podcast and with another local in New Hampshire, and we're trying to get just. It's from us. It's about bringing awareness to the Northeast, and you're part of the Northeast, man. So it would be great to collaborate and
absolutely, anything I can do to help you, let me know, brother.
Sure, that would be
anything
great.
I can do anything I can do.
I appreciate it, man.
And then tomorrow, guys, me and Aaron are gonna take a ride out to Patchogue to see if the gates are open. They're supposed to be open in March. I don't know if that means March 1st. I'm hoping so. So if the gates are open for the trail roads, that means that we can drive through the whole forest again in the interior of the forest. So if they're open, we're going to do that. We're going to drive through tomorrow evening, camera on the dashboard, see if maybe, there's a chance you can catch a crossing or something on the side of the road. And I'm going to scout some new areas deep into the interior of the forest because now I can drive to those places, park, get out instead of having to park on the outside and then walk for 2 hours to get to a spot. If the gates are open, it'll make it much easier. So tomorrow we will be out there and I'll go live once we're there. So if the gates are open, I'll go live so you guys can see that whole.
No, what time you guys heading there? Are you heading there early?
Probably be if I had to guess, probably around 4:30. That'd be my guess. Yeah, because they close at dusk. So I don't know if that means that somebody goes every night and closes those gates. I kind of doubt it.
I doubt it too, because I've had this issue where I've hiked and they're like, "Oh, you better get out of here by sunset because they closed the gate." I tried hurrying up to do this hike, and then I talked to someone at the end. They're like, "Nah, they rarely close the gate." So,
dude, there's so many gates there. And there's so many trail roads that go in and out of that forest. I can't imagine that they got someone who goes there 7 nights a week.
to close all of them.
I just don't. I can't imagine. I've never seen a ranger in that park, not once. So, who the frick knows?
Hopefully it's open, because usually if it's not open by March 1st, then it's open by the first day of spring at least. You know what I mean?
So
that's a couple of weeks away. You know,
I know 100%. I know 100% that Hell Hollow, the road Hell Hollow Road, which is where Hell Hollow and Hell Hollow Holler, it's so hard to say, is located. That road is an actual road, but it still goes through part of the forest. It's a paved road because there's houses up at the other end.
yeah.
That road, they closed the gates also, and those gates are open March 1st. So I'm assuming that they open all the rest too, because it's all part of the park. It's all part of the forest.
Now, what park is this called? I'm going to write it down. I just want to see how far away it is from me in Rhode Island to where
It's
you are.
Patchogue, Patchaug. Where are you in Rhode Island?
I'm on the coastal road. I'm near Newport. I'm like on the water. So I'm kind of near Fall River.
Okay, so Fall River from me.
I am 15 minutes from Freetown State Forest. I am close
out of here.
Dude, I've done some hiking in there.
Me too.
I've done some hiking there with Alex, because Alex knows more.
Weird.
Alex knows more about where I live than I know. He knows so much about the folklore of the Bridgewater, and he's done. Of course, Alex has done a documentary on it. So
that's one of my favorite things. I know a lot about that place too. It's one of my favorite tales.
It's a hotbed of everything. It's a mix of everything in there.
Everything, dude.
If you're into Sasquatch, they have that. If you're into the paranormal, they have that. I had a buddy. I know we're running. I know we're still on, but I had a buddy that saw an apparition back in the late 90s up there.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it affected him. It affected him. And I know because of something, what happened to me, how much it affected me. I saw how much that affected him. So I believed him when he said he saw this apparition, and it freaked him out to where that kid was going back all the time, hoping he would see it again. And he never did. But it affected him. It affected him on that ledge. I've hiked to that ledge a couple times. It's the assortment.
Hey, there's Alex right there.
Oh, is Petticoff in? Oh, there he is. Nice. I knew he was staying on late for some reason. We had to get the Petticoff clearance before we could get off.
Oh, that's wonderful, man. Alex, Alex. Tonight was a Petticoff fanboy show.
His ears were ringing. He's like,
they were.
Like, this freaking Brian guy. He's like, he's always talking about me. I was just talking about him on the other podcast I was just on. Now we're on this one. I'm telling the same damn story. Like, yeah.
Well, we have a lot of respect for Alex, man. I think very highly of him. Just a wonderful guy, wonderful dude. Yep. One of the nicest people I've met in this community, period. And all the other stuff, you know, smart. I said it, his brain's like a steel trap, man. Once a piece of information gets in there, it doesn't go anywhere. It stays. He remembers it all.
Yeah,
he remembers everything. It's crazy. Yep. But yeah, so I will be going back out. We need to go to Freetown then. If that's where you live, we need to go there, dude.
Tell you what, yeah. And Alex loves going to Freetown, man. Like I said, he taught me a lot about the folklore when he came down.
We need to go there. And Alex, you should probably come. Just saying. I haven't had the opportunity to go out with Alex Petticoff in the field like Brian has. You know, this is something that I have to do before I die.
Put it on the bucket list.
It's on the bucket list. And, you know, I'm 42 now. I'm in the worst shape of my life. So we got to get this done soon. We got to get it done soon.
Oh, that's good stuff, man.
It's great, man. You were wonderful. You were wonderful.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it, man. And thank you. And thank you for what you do. You know.
Oh, I'm not doing nothing. I'm just highlighting good people here, man. That's all I do.
Yeah, and you're giving a platform for people like us to tell what's happened to them. And hopefully down the road, when someone's looking up something and they need help with something, maybe some of this information we're talking about will help them. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because
that's right.
I think information is key. especially
sure.
especially if you've been sitting on something for so long that you don't know what the hell could have done it.
Right.
Maybe you'll find your answers through podcasts like this.
Yeah, right. You're right. You're right. I guess I downplay these things a lot, but you're right. It helped me learn so much when I watched documentaries and YouTube shows and all that stuff. So it's
It's something you can relate to on some aspects, and
for
that's
sure.
how I look at it. I can relate to some of these stories, and that's why I'm here.
That's right. And there's a whole lot of great people too. A
Oh,
lot.
oh hell yeah, man! I'm so yeah. I can't say it anymore. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna talk about the guy anymore, but he knows what he did for me. So
Yeah. Well,
we'll leave it there.
he's Alex is a rare one. There's just,
Yeah,
there's a lot. This community is small and big at the same time, if that makes sense, right? So you start to learn who everybody is after a little while. But there are some people who just have a spot in it's that important spot because they're doing important work and they're doing it very well. And that's
they stay humble.
And well, yeah, that too. That's
He
the
is
biggest
he,
thing.
yes,
We talked about the ego thing earlier.
exactly.
If Alex had an ego, I wouldn't be talking about this right
Oh, me
now.
neither. I'd be like, oh, what a prick. No.
Yeah, exactly. But no, he's not that guy at all. He's not that guy at all.
Nah,
When
man.
I messed up and double booked myself and him that night, which I was so embarrassed because I was wanted him on the show so bad. And then I'm like, hey, dude, by the way, I screwed up. Sorry, can't do my show tonight, but will you come on Doug's show with me?
And he didn't care. And it didn't bother
he didn't
him
care at all. And then he canceled on me the next time.
Well, eye for an eye.
No, I'm just kidding. He didn't cancel. He had to postpone because he ended up having some really bad storm out there that knocked out power.
Wow,
and it was the night that he hit 100,000 subscribers, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was a crazy night. It was a crazy night. But of course, he came back on the show and he was great. He was great.
Yeah, he's good to his word. Yeah,
he's great. Yeah. So he said, let's do it. He said, drive through some crazy deep water again on Capicot Road.
We got some good footage that day. It was a fun day. We had a fun day, and he needed to get a little more footage for his Bridgewater Triangle documentary. And the roads that day, like you go on Capicot Road, man, it's a dangerous road. It's probably one of the worst roads I have ever been on in the United States.
Really?
Because oh boy, you can't go through there in a car. You'll get stuck. It's that bad with puddles and potholes, and oh my god, I couldn't believe his car was. I thought we were gonna just stall out. I was out of the vehicle. He's like, hey man, can you get this footage of me going through this big puddle? And I mean, I'm like, okay. I mean, he was going. I mean, his door was under the water at the bottom. I was like, oh man, I'm like, he's gonna flood it. But no, it was fun. It was a good time. And he took me to a good taco place after that. Of course, near where I live that I didn't know about, because there, once again, is Alex Petticoff showing me something else.
He travels all the time, man. He knows everything everywhere.
He's like, oh, you haven't been to this Mexican place down on South Main Street in Fall River? I'm like, no. He's like,
oh, that's funny.
It was delicious.
That's funny. That's great. The RAV4 is a beast, he said.
It is a beast.
Let's see. We'll see. We'll see. You should wait until you see the first day I went out into the forest on those trail roads. I drive a Prius, bro. Prius. And I'm like, oh, this don't look so bad. Take this dirt road in the Prius, and I'm back there. And it just rained like the day before. It's all rocks and hills and turns. And I'm
you
like,
couldn't record that. All the recording.
I'm on this trail, bro. I'm on this trail road. It's like this wide, and I'm like, I see the ruts on the side, and then there's a big hump in the middle, and I'm like, how am I going to get by in this thing?
To a Prius, that's like a roadblock.
It's a roadblock. So I had to drive one wheel on the hump, one wheel on the embankment, like this. to get over it.
I'm trying to
and that's not
picture-
even the worst that I've done. We went during COVID, and I literally was like, took this dirt road in Stonington to nowhere. It went from dirt road to path, and you couldn't turn around. So I was like, well, we got to keep going. And it just continued to get more narrow, more narrow, more narrow, more narrow, more narrow, and more rocky and bumpy. And we're in the car, and I'm like, I don't know if we're making it out of here. And I didn't know where it even went to. We just went. We were bored. It's COVID. We were on lockdown, and like,
I have the greatest idea. Okay, when we meet up, let's not take my truck. Let's take your Prius. It's gonna be such an adventure.
It'd be an adventure, all right. At least you don't have to chip in for gas. It's 40 miles per gallon.
There's gonna be a Sasquatch looking at us. Look at these two friggin' idiots in this little Prius trying to go through this.
Well, at least you can lift it up with one hand and carry it out. No problem. All right, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna go.
Yeah, let's get out of here. I'm starting to get tired. I'm starting to giggle at everything.
This is great. You've been wonderful, man. I really appreciate this. This was so much fun.
I'll talk to you tomorrow, man. We'll set something up. All right.
All right, brother.
All right, dude. I'll see you.
Have a good night. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Everyone who's still here. Good night.
Yeah. Good night. Thanks for hanging in there, guys. See you, Alex.
Bye, Petikoff.